A man took part in the hunter qualification exam. Yet he shocked even the world's top S-rank powerhouses. All because he defeated the super rookie of the hunter world using only the most basic physical techniques. This scene made every examiner feel it was impossible. Even the strongest of the S-rank guilds could not suppress the fighting spirit in his heart, and wanted to step in personally to find out the upper limit of his strength. But what they did not know was that this man had fought in another world for a full 80 years and was the undefeated gun god, who, by himself alone, personally wiped out the demon king of that other world. After completing his mission, he also felt utterly exhausted, so he made a request to the goddess that she preserve all the experiences and memories he had here intact and send him back to Earth. The goddess agreed, but his earthly body had long since died, so she would place his soul into a new vessel. Immediately after, a beam of light crashed down onto Yu Chon-suk, and his new vessel was also a body that was just about to breathe its last. But the goddess believed that he would surely be able to live a different life again with this body. When he opened his eyes again, he had returned to Earth. That damned other world had put Yu Chon-suk through endless torment. Now he had finally returned, but this new body was only that of a teenage boy. He twisted open the kitchen faucet, and what flowed out was clean water untouched by pollution. And with just a light press, fire could be lit. This was what true supreme magic was. The majors of the other world could all go to hell. And in this world, there was also the chicken cutlet he loved most. And this real texture made his eyes heat up with excitement. This was what food was supposed to taste like. During the full 80 years he had struggled in the other world, he had never once eaten a proper meal. Now, at last, he could live in this world like an ordinary person. But at that moment, he did not notice the eerie red light glowing outside the window. He walked into the bathroom and took a comfortable shower. Although Yu Chon-suk was already seriously out of touch with this world, he believed that a beautiful life would soon come close to him. But just then, a ghostly face suddenly appeared by his window. A chill instantly ran down his back in fright. How could such a thing exist on Earth? Then he heard the broadcast behind him sound out, issuing a notice to all residents. A corrosion rift had appeared in the apartment complex. The broadcast ordered everyone to head to the underground shelter immediately. And Yu Chon-suk had no idea at all what a corrosion rift was, nor did he know what exactly had happened. The next second, he saw a scene that made his scalp go numb. On his window glass, several of those humanoid monsters from before were crawling all over it in a dense swarm. Their claws were just about to pierce through the glass. In the next moment, just as they smashed through the window and charged in, he turned and rushed out. It seemed that the Earth of today was nothing like the Earth in his memory. He had to find out what had happened. And these humanoid monsters, judging by their appearance, they were very similar to the monsters of the other world. Very soon, he crept along the edge outside the window, avoiding that group of monsters. After they left, he immediately climbed out through the window. He judged that he should follow the broadcast instructions and go to the shelter first. Just then, he saw a child ahead. He was about to take the child and flee together, but discovered that the child actually wanted to turn back to look for the monsters. That face was still very young, but his eyes were frighteningly hard. He was going to kill the monsters and even asked Yu Chon-suk whether he wanted to join him. Yu Chon-suk was a little unable to understand it. Are kids these days all this reckless? From the child, he learned that Earth had already been like this for a full 13 years. The so-called corrosion rifts were the exits where monsters appeared. No one knew how they formed, and no one knew where or when they would appear. Yu Chon-suk felt a heavy oppression in his chest as he listened. He had fought desperately to return to Earth, only for this place to have become hell as well. He asked the child, "Who is the strongest hunter right now?" The child answered cleanly and decisively with one name, Lee Se-eun. Lee Se-eun belonged to the Ganabi Guild, which ranked in Earth's top 10. She wielded a greatsword and was currently handling a corrosion rift in Chorwon. This world clearly had powerful hunters, yet ordinary people were still fighting monsters too. This still made Yu Chon-suk feel unreal. At this moment, he suddenly covered the child's mouth and lowered his voice, telling the child not to make a sound. There were monsters coming up ahead. He focused his eyes and saw that there were 5 monsters in total ahead. But he knew very clearly, there were 5 in front of him, and a 6th was still hiding in the dark. Fortunately, this body seemed to possess extraordinary strength, so dealing with these few should not be difficult. But he was not confident he could protect this child during the fight, yet it was also impossible for him to just leave him behind. Just as he was thinking of a countermeasure, he suddenly caught a familiar sensation. A faint blue gas drifted through the air. That was magic power. Now he could be certain. This place in the world he had once lived and operated under the same rules. The next second, one of the monsters in front of them suddenly burst into flames. This attack came from Yu Chon-suk. He had long since exhausted the magic power he had accumulated over more than 80 years. But as long as there was magic in the air, he could condense it again. This meant that he could still use the flames of paradox engraved into his soul, though he was a little dissatisfied with the firepower. But it was still more than enough to deal with these few guys. Seeing this scene, the child's eyes immediately turned worshipful. I didn't expect you to actually have a unique skill. After saying that, the child also wanted to rush up and finish them off. Yu Chan-suk was speechless for a moment. The main target among the monsters was not dead yet. So what was he rushing in for? Sure enough, just as he had guessed, the little boy instantly became the target locked onto by that group of monsters. Sure enough, just as he had guessed, the little boy instantly became the target locked onto by that group of monsters. The little boy began trembling in fear on the spot, but luckily Yu Chan-suk reached out in time and grabbed his arm tightly. Yu Chan-suk told the little boy to hand him the stick on the ground. He wanted to borrow a weapon. The next second, the figures of 3 monsters lunged at him at high speed. The moment he gripped the weapon, his gaze completely changed. The shadow of the stick cut through the air with a crisp explosive crack. Immediately after, those 3 monsters were directly sliced in half at the waist by him. At this moment, he once again regained the feel of the gun god stepping onto the battlefield. The boy was so shocked by this scene that he could not speak. He concluded that Yu Chan-suk was definitely no ordinary person. He had to be a hidden hunter. But inside Yu Chan-suk, anger surged and churned. The peaceful life he had traded everything to obtain was actually going to turn into a battlefield again. Soon, with a dark expression, he entered the underground shelter together with the brat. The child's mother recognized her son at a glance, and kept thanking Yu Chan-suk. "You were the one who saved my son, right? Thank you so much." Seeing the expensive clothes on the woman, Yu Chan-suk froze for a moment. So this child was a rich young master. No wonder he had been so arrogant just now. At this moment, the entire building began to shake violently. In only a few seconds, a monster smashed the main door apart and barged in by force. Everyone was screaming and running for their lives, and only Yu Chan-suk stood where he was, not moving a single step. The child turned back and shouted at him, "Run. Even for you, you can't beat it this time." But Yu Chan-suk still did not run. He had originally thought he had returned to a familiar world, but now it seemed, this place was no different from the other world. He tilted his head and asked the brat, "Aren't you rich? Then why do you still want to become a hunter? Wouldn't it be better to find a safe place to hide and live peacefully?" The child said that his father had been killed by a monster. Their whole family had originally been hiding in a shelter too, but his father was still killed by a monster inside that shelter. From that moment on, the child understood there was no truly safe place on Earth at all. So he swore to become a hunter, to become the strongest hunter in this world, to eliminate all corrosion rifts, and save this world. You might think what I'm saying is ridiculous. Before he could finish speaking, Yu Chan-suk interrupted him. Yu Chan-suk smiled, but it was a smile of approval. "You will become a very remarkable hunter. But unfortunately, you cannot save this world." As Yu Chan-suk's words fell, the child's mother desperately pulled him and urged him to run. Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out behind them. The child suddenly turned around and discovered in shock that the monster they had feared had already been killed by Yu Chan-suk with one hand. He said the child could not save the world because this was something he would do himself. After all, he had more than enough experience with this kind of work. After dealing with the monster, Yu Chan-suk returned home and filled in some basic information about this world. And at the same time he also discovered that his account balance only had 3,001 left. The original owner of this body had once been an employee at a logistics company, but because of a corrosion rift, the company went bankrupt, and he also lost his job. Just as Yu Chan-suk was still thinking about how to make money and survive, he saw a hunter recruitment notice on his phone. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day at the Hunter Association building. Today, a grand selection ceremony was to be held here. And this ceremony had also attracted quite a few hunter scouts, who wanted to dig up promising newcomers here and bring them back to their own guilds. But one of the scouts felt that this batch of examinees had no particularly outstanding prospects at all, just a bunch of small fry. Yet this selection had even attracted Lee Se-yoon, a hunter ranked in the world's top 10. Everyone cast worshipful looks. Someone like her could usually only be seen in the news, and no one had expected to see her in person today. They all assumed by default that Lee Se-yoon had come here for Han Sang-ae, a graduate of the Hunter Academy. She had awakened electrokinetic abilities. But what they did not know was that Lee Se-yoon did not take Han Sang-ae seriously at all, and at most saw her as a walking power bank. The colleague beside her was still saying that Han Sang-ae's abilities really could come in handy. At that moment, the man beside her pushed up his sunglasses. Even if someone performs well in the academy, there are plenty who fall apart completely in real combat. That sentence was exactly to Lee Se-yoon's liking, and she casually tossed her colleague a piece of candy. This is a praise candy. Actual combat and training had never been the same thing. For students who had only gone through safe training, it was hard to adapt to real battle, and Han Sang-ae would also need a long time. Soon, the competition below was about to begin. Lee Se-yoon looked down at the arena with great interest, as if choosing prey. Freshman, show me the strength that will make me want you. The host froze for a moment when he saw the contestant's information. It was actually someone of civilian background who had not even attended Hunter Academy. At the same time, Yu Chan-suk pulled up the zipper of his combat suit, with the weapon issued by the association in his hand. The host was still mocking him, wondering where exactly he got the nerve to stand on the stage. And the contestant stepping onto the stage at this moment was Yu Chan-suk. He himself was indeed still not very used to this new name. The rules this time were simple: only weapons provided by the association could be used, and no fatal injuries could be inflicted on the opponent. Yu Chan-suk's idea was very simple: use this assessment as a springboard to obtain greater authority. The blonde guy opposite him looked arrogant and did not take Yu Chan-suk seriously at all. As the referee raised his hand high, the first match officially began. The instant the fight started, the blonde guy charged forward violently. He was trembling with excitement, because his opponent was trash who could not even condense magic power. But in the face of that momentum, there was not the slightest expression on Yu Chan-suk's face, because in his eyes, the blonde guy was full of openings. The next second, Yu Chan-suk drove the weapon in his hand into the ground. And then, under the blonde guy's stunned gaze, he directly vanished from sight. The blonde guy's heart sank. A speed-type hunter? By the time he reacted, Yu Chan-suk was already standing behind him. Your spearsmanship is terrible. I don't need a weapon to beat you. In the next second, Yu Chan-suk drove a punch into his stomach. That force nearly made the blonde guy vomit up his breakfast. But just as the blonde guy was about to collapse, Yu Chan-suk planted a foot and forced him back upright. Then came a vicious uppercut that directly shattered his jaw. The blonde guy who had been acting cocky just moments ago was now practically blacking out. Yu Chan-suk, on the other hand, was momentarily stunned. He knew the other side was weak, but not to the point of being this fragile. The reason he had gone barehanded was because he was afraid the spear would hit too hard. After thinking it over, he understood. This guy was just a rookie, and this was what average level was actually like. But this scene left Lee Se-yoon stunned on the spot. What exactly was up with this guy? She immediately pulled up Yu Chan-suk's file, employee at a logistics company. The colleague beside her explained that there was almost no stored magic power in the young man's body. To have this kind of strength, it ought to require long-term accumulation. Otherwise it could only be luck. But those words only earned him a piece of shut-up candy. In Lee Se-yoon's eyes, Yu Chan-suk looked more like someone who was deliberately choosing not to accumulate magic power. On the field, Yu Chan-suk rolled his neck and felt a little uncomfortable. But in order to prove his ability, he decided to simply finish off this round. The next second, Yu Chan-suk's figure directly closed in right in front of the blonde guy. He raised his fist. Don't worry, this punch won't be fatal. But the blonde guy was already scared senseless and could only keep begging for mercy. With a bang, Yu Chan-suk punched him until he fainted on the spot. This scene made quite a few hunter scouts begin discussing Yu Chan-suk. And Lee Se-yoon decided that while everyone else was still discussing him, she would personally go test Yu Chan-suk's limits. Her companion asked where she was going, and Lee Se-yoon only gave one reply: to see the association president. I want to ask him for a favor. At the same time, Yu Chan-suk's fighting was still continuing. But the results were all the same. No one could last more than 3 moves against him. The more Yu Chan-suk fought, the more annoyed he became. Just what exactly did this Hunter Academy teach? How could it train people into such uselessness? Finally, after he knocked down several people, a decent opponent stood before him. The moment she appeared, people around immediately began talking. She was candidate Han Sang-ae, and everyone wanted to know whether she could put an end to this mysterious newcomer's winning streak. Yu Chan-suk only glanced at her once before his interest was stirred. Because among everyone present today, she had the greatest concentration of magic power on her body. Han Sang-ae's tone was sharp. You've gotten this far entirely by luck, but from here on, you won't have any more lucky breaks. Yu Chan-suk sneered inwardly. Was this kind of template line also handed out uniformly by the academy? The next second, Han Sang-ae slowly drew the blade in her hand. A golden light flashed in her eyes. You may not have a special skill, but I won't go easy on you either. That statement actually made Yu Chan-suk pause. How could he possibly have no skills? He was just afraid that if he used them, he would damage her too badly. She took a deep breath, then quickly lowered herself into a crouch, bending at the waist, as if airflow were swirling beside her hand, and began condensing magic power. Golden lightning wrapped around the blade, and the whole sword trembled slightly. Seeing this scene, Yu Chan-suk did become a little interested. In the next moment, her figure shot out violently, and a blue-green light burst forth at the same time. But the blade-drawing strike she had charged up for so long did not even touch a single hair of Yu Chan-suk's. He simply leaped into the air and dodged it. Han Sang-ae was completely shocked. He dodged it? He evaded her lightning draw slash just by jumping. Suspended in midair, Yu Chan-suk found it even more interesting. She was running electricity between the scabbard and the blade to create magnetism, then stacking magnetic force onto the explosive burst of the draw. turning that strike into a railgun. A moment later, Yu Chansuk landed steadily. So far, your skill is the best, but you missed one thing. You're only thinking about how to strike faster. You're too obsessed with speed. Han Sang-a's problem was this: in order to accelerate, she had laid down a magnetic track in the air, no matter how fast or strong she was. No one would be stupid enough to take an attack with its path written all over its face. Han Sang-a was very unwilling to accept it and felt that Yu Chansuk had only dodged by chance. She drew her blade again at high speed and launched an even fiercer series of attacks. Even without that move, I can still beat someone like you. But what left her in despair was that Yu Chansuk casually dodged all of her attacks. You really are full of yourself. If I can dodge even your fastest move, why would I get hit by something like this? Yu Chansuk's words completely ignited Han Sang-a, and she stopped thinking entirely. Her mind held nothing but anger. Driven by rage, Han Sang-a directly brought out her strongest attack. Yu Chansuk saw at a glance that she was forcibly squeezing herself dry to condense magic power. If she kept going, her body would give out first. Yu Chansuk flashed in front of her in an instant. That move just now was cool, but this is where it ends. Before making his move, he added blandly, "If it hurts, raise your left hand." Then came a thud as he drove a heavy punch into her lower abdomen. He had not used full strength, yet the blow still made Han Sang-a spit saliva everywhere. After that he pressed in with a chain of punches, practically attacking point blank, and the final punch crashed heavily into her face. After taking that punch, Han Sang-a's consciousness began to drift. With a thump, this newcomer who had been entrusted with high hopes failed to defeat Yu Chansuk and instead collapsed at his feet. The whole crowd immediately exploded. He suppressed Han Sang-a? She's one of the academy's top students. Because Yu Chansuk had no reputation, many people instead began doubting Han Sang-a, thinking she was just famous, too dependent on magic power, and lacking in physical training. Hearing movement behind him, Yu Chansuk thought Han Sang-a wanted to keep fighting. But when he turned around, he discovered that she had merely raised her left hand. Her whole body was practically floating, and she probably could not even stand up. Yu Chansuk could not help finding it a little amusing. He had casually said, "If it hurts, raise your left hand," and she had really done it, truly a model honor student. At that moment, a staff member quickly walked over to the referee. He whispered a few words into the referee's ear, and the referee's brow furrowed more and more deeply. Immediately after, the referee announced to the whole arena, "The match schedule has changed. Winner Yu Chansuk, please rest for a while." Those words made Yu Chansuk frown. Haven't I already finished? Why do I still need to rest and prepare for another match? The referee's next sentence cleared up the confusion. Later, winner Yu Chansuk will have a special match against an active hunter. This match has been specially approved by the association president, and the arrangements are complete. Everyone stared at the name on the big screen. The audience's reaction was so intense that Yu Chansuk judged that the person coming must be highly seasoned. A special match? Someone is stepping forward on purpose to test me? I've seen this sort of thing in the other world too. Just then, the sound of a blade scraping across the ground echoed through the arena. Your name is Yu Chansuk, right? I'm Lee Se-yoon. I came to confirm whether you have other skills. This stage is too small for you. How about a match with me, Yu Chansuk? If you think it's too much, you can refuse. I'd understand. After all, it's very sudden. When he saw clearly who it was, Yu Chansuk let out a bitter smile. It was actually the Lee Se-yoon that Child had mentioned, the world's top 10. And the calmness and pressure radiating from her were absolutely not an act. She was a true professional hunter. With Yu Chansuk's current body, even with a spear in hand, it would be hard to defeat her. Yet for some reason, a slight curve rose at the corner of his mouth. Since you want to test me, then come on. The referee was slightly stunned. You don't need to rest? Lee Se-yoon saw the battle intent ignite in Yu Chansuk's eyes. It seems you and I are the same kind of person. Yu Chansuk also revealed an excited smile. Then let me see whether the strongest in this world is worthy of my recognition. And so, the two instantly erupted into fierce battle. Their clash left the entire audience stunned into silence. Even the referee was sweating on his forehead. He no longer knew how to commentate on it. At this moment, Yu Chansuk blocked another of Lee Se-yoon's attacks, but there was not the slightest ease on his face. Because he could feel it, this woman was strong, so strong that she was almost not inferior to him. In the next moment, in order to break free from Lee Se-yoon's pressure, Yu Chansuk spun the shaft of his spear in his palm and forcibly blasted away her offensive. He used his full strength in the strike, forcing Lee Se-yoon to retreat repeatedly. But Lee Se-yoon still remained completely at ease. She was only testing Yu Chansuk's limits and had not used her full strength. Compared with the beginning, Yu Chansuk's speed had already dropped noticeably. At this moment, Yu Chansuk had already been entangled in combat with this S-rank hunter for a long time, and fatigue was finally written across his face. It was not that she had no openings, but that this body could not keep up with his combat awareness. Lee Se-yoon was genuinely excited. She had not seen someone like Yu Chansuk in a long time. Though they were not on the same level, The word strong absolutely suited him. She wanted, for the first time in a long while, to have a truly fierce fight, but she also noticed that Yu Chan-suk was beginning to tire. Lee Se-yoon stepped forward and spoke calmly. "You did very well. I originally thought you could only last 5 minutes, but I didn't expect you to hold on for 30. Her figure suddenly accelerated and rushed forward. "Since you're tired, I'll make it easier for you. Go back and rest sooner." Yu Chan-suk tightened his grip on the spear shaft. There was no stored magic power left in his body, and the magic power in the air was very thin as well. He let out a breath and flattened his emotions. He had not wanted to use that move, but now he had no other choice. Yu Chan-suk quickly leaned back, preparing to receive Lee Se-yoon's next wave of attacks. His eyes locked tightly onto her movements. So long as even the slightest opening appeared, he would ignite the flames of paradox. When Yu Chan-suk ignited the flames of paradox, shock appeared in Lee Se-yoon's eyes for the first time. But she did not retreat and directly brought her sword down, cutting through even the black flames offensive together with it. Yu Chan-suk knew it had not hit, and immediately retreated to open the distance. Lee Se-yoon revealed a satisfied smile. "That strike just now should have been impossible for you to dodge, but you still avoided it. And what is that black aura on your body? You used it to attack me just now, didn't you? But I cut it apart." Yu Chan-suk slowly opened his mouth. "This is the Flames of Paradox, and also my final trump card." Back in the other world, this had been the power he used most often and trusted most. These black flames were different from ordinary fire. His clothes were still intact because they could not burn matter. What they burned were abstract concepts designated by me. With my current output, I can't ignite concepts with higher ignition points, such as self, memory, or reason. In the next moment, Yu Chan-suk suddenly charged forward, the spear spinning in his hand with explosive force. What he could burn now was only fatigue. Lee Se-yoon was visibly startled. "Your speed is even faster. Could it be that you were holding back the whole time?" Yu Chan-suk did not answer. His figure closed in on her like teleportation, and the spear instantly thrust out in a strike. Lee Se-yoon's eyes were full of disbelief. "You recovered your strength in such a short time? How did you do that?" Before her words had even finished, her figure vanished from the arena. With only a whoosh, she likewise appeared before Yu Chan-suk at near teleporting speed. The two swung their weapons at the same time, and dense metallic clangs exploded through the air. But the more Lee Se-yoon fought, the more she felt something was wrong. The concentration of magic power in the air was constantly fluctuating, but the arena's settings had not changed. There was only one reason: the flames of paradox of Yu Chan-suk. Just as ordinary fire releases energy by burning matter, the flames of paradox also release magic power when burning abstract concepts. Yu Chan-suk used magic power to ignite the flames of paradox, and the flames of paradox burned away his fatigue, which in turn produced even more magic power, forming a cycle. This was practically an endless loop. Fatigue was burned away, letting him continue burning. The magic power produced then ignited the black flames again, repeating over and over. In other words, what he excelled at was a war of attrition. The longer the battle lasted, the weaker the opponent became, while he could always maintain himself in a half-fatigued state and keep fighting. At this moment, Lee Se-yoon suddenly closed in front of Yu Chan-suk and made a sword-swinging motion. With a ringing sword cry, that slash directly split the arena apart, but it still did not hit Yu Chan-suk. Lee Se-yoon slowly raised her head. "Are you still going to continue?" Yu Chan-suk walked out step by step from the dust and smoke, and let out a low laugh. "I was planning to fight a battle of attrition with you from the start, and now you're telling me to stop? You know I can keep going, don't you?" Yu Chan-suk continued pressing her. "Would you like someone like me, who doesn't know when to back down?" Weariness surfaced in Lee Se-yoon's eyes. She had been suppressing her strength the entire time, fighting at a level close to Yu Chan-suk's. If she got serious, she could probably end it in one move. "I think no one would like someone who doesn't know when to back down. When a tree is burned, only ashes remain, and ashes that have been burned cannot be burned again. Likewise, the flames of paradox also leave residue behind. When everything has been burned down to nothing but ashes, that is when the flames of paradox disappear, and also when Yu Chan-suk's life reaches its end." Lee Se-yoon glanced at the timer, 4 hours and 17 minutes. At this moment, Yu Chan-suk had already been completely beaten down by Lee Se-yoon, and she looked down at him. "You've held on long enough. Are you still going to continue?" Yet Yu Chan-suk directly admitted defeat. "Please spare me. If this keeps going, I really will die. Since I forfeit, the winner of this match is Lee Se-yoon." At this moment, Lee Se-yoon took a lollipop out from her clothes. Seeing that lollipop, all of her subordinates froze. Lee Se-yoon tossed the lollipop to Yu Chan-suk together with a business card. "This is your reward for working hard. The card is in there too. Remember to call me." Yu Chan-suk picked up the card and glanced at it. On it was written, "Janabi LLC, Team 3 Partner Hunter." Lee Se-yoon lowered her voice and said to Yu Chan-suk, "We'll talk about the details later. Once you've rested up, give me a call." The scene shifted, and Yu Chan-suk bit down and crushed the lollipop Lee Se-yoon had given him. He was completely dumbfounded by the smartphone in front of him. Back in his era, identification had still been handwritten on paper, but this phone could not only prove identity, it even had a second-hand equipment trading app, as well as messaging and calling functions. That reminded him of the other world. It was a bit like magic for long-distance voice transmission. Just then, a burly man walked up to Yu Chon-suk. "You're Hunter Yu Chon-suk, right? In person, you're way more handsome than on camera." After finding him, the man also handed him a business card. The card read Grand Purity LLC. His name was Yoon Sung-hyun, and his purpose was direct. He wanted Yu Chon-suk to join his team. "If you build up enough experience under me, you'll definitely shine." Yu Chon-suk raised his eyes and looked at his expression, feeling that he did not seem to be lying. But Lee Se-eun's expression suddenly flashed through Yu Chon-suk's mind. There had seemed to be a faint blush on her face at the time, and she had reminded him to make sure to contact her after he had rested well. So he accepted Yoon Sung-hyun's business card. After all, he already had a prior engagement and could not give an answer on the spot, so he could only say, "I need to think about it." Yet this action made Yoon Sung-hyun burst into laughter. "Did you think I'd force you to agree immediately? I'll give you plenty of time." Yu Chon-suk had thought he was fairly easygoing, but then the man suddenly pressed a hand onto Yu Chon-suk's shoulder, and Yu Chon-suk lifted his eyes and met that unfriendly gaze head-on. "I hope you think it through. I believe you're a smart person." With that, he left, leaving only Yu Chon-suk standing there in a daze. Yu Chon-suk was stunned because he had not expected the man to be so blatant. After this, not only would he not go to the Grand Purity Guild, he did not even want to consider it anymore. 10 minutes later, Yu Chon-suk dialed Lee Se-eun's number and asked where she was. Lee Se-eun sent him an address, the little hut on the second floor of the Hunter Association, telling him to come straight up and find her. When he reached the second floor, Yu Chon-suk indeed saw a shop called Little Hut. The clerk became excited the moment he saw him. He was a trending figure now, after all. "Welcome to Little Hut. That person has been waiting for you for a long time." Hearing Yu Chon-suk enter, Lee Se-eun turned around and casually beckoned to him. She had not expected Yu Chon-suk to come so quickly. Did something happen? Yu Chon-suk recounted what had just happened. "Someone wanted to recruit me into a guild, a particularly huge guy." Lee Se-eun's expression remained calm. "The person you're talking about should be Yoon Sung-hyun from the Grand Purity Guild. Since he personally set his sights on you, the other guilds naturally wouldn't dare make a move." Yu Chon-suk laughed quietly. "Even your guild is afraid of him? If that's really the case, I'll be disappointed." But what Yu Chon-suk had not expected was that Lee Se-eun had no intention of recruiting him. "What do you think about working without belonging to any guild? I mean, being a freelancer." That immediately piqued Yu Chon-suk's interest. What she means is, even without joining a guild, I can still take guild commissions. Lee Se-eun explained that she guessed Yoon Sung-hyun would offer Yu Chon-suk a junior position. Yu Chon-suk slapped the table. "He'd only give me a junior position? Then what exactly is a partner hunter?" So Lee Se-eun began explaining the rules to him. Guild hunters are usually divided into 3 types: junior, senior, and partner. Juniors and seniors belong to teams and are led by a partner hunter. You can think of them as people earning fixed salaries. Partner hunters receive equity, not fixed wages. They share dividends based on net profit, more like company owners. It sounded just like the setup of a law firm. Lee Se-eun also said that the people who first established hunter guilds had modeled them after law firms. She believed there was no need for Yu Chon-suk to start from the junior level and slowly climb upward to become a partner through promotion. Yu Chon-suk understood as well. As long as he gained enough fame and produced results convincing enough to win people over, the guilds would naturally come to him on their own. Lee Se-eun was very pleased to hear that. She found that communicating with Yu Chon-suk was almost effortless. But what puzzled Yu Chon-suk even more was why she kept giving him candy. From the moment he sat down until now, she had already stuffed 2 pieces into his hand. "But I have neither connections nor resources, so how am I supposed to get decent commissions? That would be too hard." Lee Se-eun said that was not a problem at all. She could help him, and for free. Yu Chon-suk was even less convinced. "I don't believe in free benefits. Why are you helping me this much?" Lee Se-eun reached into a file bag. "In the future, when you become famous and the guilds are all competing for you, I only hope you'll remember that there was once a woman who helped you. Just think of it as owing me a favor." As she spoke, she slowly pushed the file bag in front of Yu Chon-suk. "Want to take a look? Whether you do it or not is up to you. I only have one simple request." Yu Chon-suk opened the file bag. A commission from Incheon City Hall. 2 years ago, the attempt to clear a corrosion rift on Jiadong Island had failed, resulting in the formation of a corrosion zone. He had originally thought he was being asked to clear the rift, but the contents actually said, "Patrol Jiadong Island, check whether any new corrosion gaps appear, and eliminate them promptly." The mission was to be carried out 1 month later. She was offering 5 million won in advance, with another 15 million won added upon success. Yu Chon-suk tossed the materials onto the table. The job was life-threatening, yet the money was not all that much. Instead, Lee Se-eun's eyes lit up. If you think it's unfair, then get stronger and get famous. Even if your pockets are already full, money will keep flowing in. Right now, she only wanted one answer from Yu Chan-suk. Take it, or leave it. Yu Chan-suk spoke slowly. Since you put it that way, I'll take it. I like challenging the limit. 30 minutes later, 2 cars were speeding down the highway. And Lee Se-yoon was on the phone with a mysterious man, introducing Yu Chan-suk, civilian background, passed a weapon mandatory tournament empty-handed. The other side had given a fairly good evaluation. Lee Se-yoon laughed out loud. That evaluation isn't quite right. He fought me for a full 4 hours. The person on the other end clearly could not believe it. Are you sure? Not because you were suppressing your strength? Lee Se-yoon gave a cold laugh. I'm a veteran hunter with more than 10 years of experience, someone who survived hell. By all rights, I should have been able to toy with him easily, yet I still had to fight him head-on for more than 4 hours. A thought even surfaced in her mind. Even if she had another chance, she might not encounter a monster like Yu Chan-suk again. The other party was still worried, but that mission clearly calls for an experienced hunter. Even if his skill is strong, can he handle it if he teams up with veteran hunters? Lee Se-yoon told him not to worry, because she had already arranged for someone with enough experience to be by Yu Chan-suk's side. The other person asked again, what if that kid grows to your level? Lee Se-yoon replied coldly, this may sound harsh, but if Yu Chan-suk reaches my level, perhaps even the boss won't be his match. Time returned to 1 month earlier, when Yu Chan-suk had ordered a delivery online. The courier complained all the way, this thing is way too heavy. I really don't know what he ordered. After setting the package down at the door, he turned and hurried off to deliver the next one. After the courier left, Yu Chan-suk opened the door and carried the package inside. Soon, a very long black case was sitting on the table. This was the weapon he had bought online. With both hands, he flipped the clasps open directly. The moment he saw the weapon, shock flashed through his eyes. Its design was absurdly perfect, as if it had been custom-made for him. No matter which angle he looked at it from, this spear matched his expectations. Taking it onto the battlefield would be more than enough. There was also a bottle of green liquid in the case, said to be a spirit medicine. So-called spirit medicine was a medicine hunters use in emergencies, containing concentrated magic power, something that could save lives at a critical moment. The usual way of handling magic power was like drawing water from a dispenser. Control atmospheric magic power, store it in the body, and then mobilize it when needed. Spirit medicine let hunters complete that step in a short amount of time. But Yu Chan-suk's way of using magic power was different. He skipped storage and directly absorbed and released it from the air. The advantage was that he used the magic power in the air, so in theory there was no upper limit, and the channels for absorption and release would be continuously strengthened, allowing him to control more magic power. But the drawback was just as fatal. Before those channels had fully developed, the amount he could control was very small, making it hard to unleash a high burst in a short time. I don't have time to wait slowly, then I'll store part of it first. Yu Chan-suk drank the bottle of magic potion in one gulp. If I train at this intensity for a month, I should grow enough to reach the level I need. Time advanced to 1 month later, on Jiadong Island in Incheon. A long line had already formed there, all hunters participating in this operation. After checking Yu Chan-suk's information, the staff assigned him to Squad 8. Soon, Yu Chan-suk walked to the sign marked with the number 8. He did not say a word, but the others were chatting animatedly. This month's pay definitely wouldn't be low. The only question was when they would depart. Yu Chan-suk was meditating and resting when he suddenly heard someone call his name. When he turned around, it was unexpectedly the rising hunter star Han Sang-ae. She had cut her hair much shorter, clearly realizing that long hair could be grabbed in a fight. Han Sang-ae had come to find Yu Chan-suk this time because she wanted to cooperate with him on the mission. Yu Chan-suk asked her, "There are so many people here, so why are you specifically looking for me?" Han Sang-ae said it directly, "Because you're strong enough." During the cooperation, she wanted to observe and learn his fighting style. Yu Chan-suk was a little speechless, another burden, and one he probably would not be able to shake off in the short term. "You can follow if you want, but on one condition, you have to be able to keep up with my speed." At that moment, a staff member interrupted them. Squad 8 is now fully assembled, so I'll begin the mission briefing. Some of you are on your first mission, so I'll explain the terminology as well. Those with experience, please bear with me. Corrosion rifts are divided into Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, and unrated, with the ones closer to Level 1 being more dangerous. A corrosion rift appearing for the first time in a given area is additionally designated as Alpha. At present, Jiadong Island's Alpha corrosion rift is located at the church in northern Insari. Although it remains unrated, considering that the rift may strengthen at any time, we strongly advise that you do not approach it. Your mission is to patrol Yukniri and Jiadong Mayan, identify any additional corrosion rifts that may appear, and eliminate them. Someone in the squad immediately expressed dissatisfaction. "You're sending rookies to do clearing missions? Isn't that a mistake?" The staff member did not respond at all and simply led them on their way. Yu Chon-suk heard someone say that this place was very dangerous, even from far away. You could feel a bone-chilling energy, as if your blood might freeze. He only felt that these people were exaggerating too much. At that moment, Han Sang-a lightly tapped Yu Chon-suk on the thigh with the back of her blade, signaling him to move. The mission had started. The staff member loudly reminded them, "The situation on the island will be reported in sync to the offshore control room. If you need support, contact us. Hunters, good luck." After arriving in the area, the group began huddling together to make a plan. Survey the two regions within 1 week. Yu Chon-suk spoke up directly and interrupted them. He pointed at the map on his phone. "I suggest establishing our base at Wazio Temple and operating from there." That immediately angered several people. "Who are you? Haven't seen you before. You're a rookie, right? What gives you the right to suggest Wazio Temple? And don't think you can order us around." Yu Chon-suk could not be bothered to argue with them and simply laid out his reasoning clearly. Wazio Temple overlooks Upnuri. The old temple buildings are still there, so they can serve as a campsite. That's common sense. You don't understand that? He had not expected that the more he explained, the angrier they would become. "There are plenty of places to stay nearby. What if we go up the mountain and get surrounded?" Yu Chon-suk coldly replied, "We're not fighting thousands of enemies in a war, so how could we possibly get surrounded there?" But his rhetorical question only made the other side more agitated. "No matter what, we're not going to follow the command of an inexperienced hunter like you." That confirmed one thing for him. Every world had people who refused to think logically. In the end, their argument produced one result: split up. They would go their way, and Yu Chon-suk's side would go theirs. Yu Chon-suk had originally thought that only Han Sang-a would follow him, but unexpectedly a third person joined their two-man group. He sized up the man beside him from the corner of his eye. The man's magic power seemed slightly higher than even Han Sang-a's. Yu Chon-suk remembered that his name seemed to be Kim Min-jae, and he was curious why the man had come along. But after hearing the reason, he actually laughed. "You two both look like this is your first mission, right? If two rookies act alone, something could easily happen, so I came to keep an eye on you." That made Yu Chon-suk feel that, at the very least, there was one reliable person in the team. Just then, Yu Chon-suk looked ahead. He had already sensed that something was wrong. He suddenly shifted his footing, and under the stunned gazes of the other two, he raised his left hand to signal them to stop. Yu Chon-suk made a gesture for silence, telling them not to make a sound. He was going to take a look from the other side. Him Min-jae quietly leaned out to observe, and in the next second, he saw dozens of monsters running through the forest. He estimated there were at least 50 and immediately suggested taking a detour. Yu Chon-suk raised a hand to calm him. "Don't panic yet. What is your unique skill?" But Kim Min-jae did not answer. "You're not thinking of fighting them, are you?" Yu Chon-suk's gaze instantly turned oppressive. "Isn't it a hunter's job to deal with corrosion creatures? I'll ask again. What is your unique skill?" After that, Yu Chon-suk confirmed that Kim Min-jae's ability was fire, and that his best spell was Fireball. "Good. On my signal, hit the middle first." Kim Min-jae froze on the spot. He had not expected Yu Chon-suk to decide so decisively to engage at once, and he could not keep up with the pace at all. Before he had even processed it, he heard Han Sang-a ask, "If Min handles the attack, then what am I supposed to do?" Kim Min-jae tried to stop them. "The three of us taking on 50 is too reckless. And didn't you say this is your first mission? While we can still contact the other hunters, let's regroup first." Yu Chon-suk said there was no time. The other squads would take too long to reach this place. And their routes were different. Yu Chon-suk's side had set out from Wazio Temple, while the other hunters were along the coastline searching for other rifts. There was another point as well. Rashly calling on the radio was unwise. You could not guarantee that the people who heard it would come, nor could you guarantee that the monsters would not scatter during the wait and instead threaten other hunters. When Kim Min-jae calmed down and thought about it, he realized that Yu Chon-suk was indeed right. And even if someone really was nearby, they might not come immediately to help because of the earlier conflict. That meant they could only rely on the three of them to resolve this. In a disadvantageous situation like this, what we need to do is launch a surprise attack. So your fireball is the key. Yu Chon-suk had no time for more nonsense and directly explained the tactics clearly. Kim Min-jae, throw the fireball at the center. I'll block both sides and keep them from escaping. Han Sang-a will finish them off and cover the rear. Kim Min-jae felt his scalp go numb as he listened. The arrangement was so detailed it was as if Yu Chon-suk had already seen the battle in advance. Yu Chon-suk was like a commander who had gone through countless battles. Just what was he? They waited until the moment the monsters clustered together. And at that very instant, Kim Min-jae directly hurled out a fireball. In the next second, before the monsters could even react, a mass of flame smashed into their formation. The fireball was extremely powerful, instantly burning several monsters to ashes. But fireball required charging time, and during that gap, Yu Chon-suk stepped in to hold the line. Kim Min-jae brought both hands together at his brow and continued charging. In the next moment, Yu Chan-suk moved, so fast he was like a passing shadow. His eyes were full of killing intent. Right now, the most important thing was to pin down the monster horde and hold out until the next fireball was ready. With a sweeping charge, he cut down several rift monsters. To maximize their effectiveness, their division of roles had to be clear. He had to keep the monsters pressed on his side and not let them get near Kim Min-jae. At that moment, one monster lunged at Yu Chan-suk. Yu Chan-suk ignored it completely, and another horizontal sweep of his spear took down several more. There was no way he would allow even one of them to get near Kim Min-jae. But he could not hold the line by himself alone, so he had to borrow Han Sang-a's strength. Yu Chan-suk said quietly, "Your turn." In the next moment, the crisp sound of a sword being drawn exploded by their ears. Han Sang-a brought her blade down in one slash, instantly shattering the bodies of 3 goblins. Han Sang-a let out a breath. "I can hold the side steady. From here on, it depends on Kim Min-jae." The moment her words fell, an even larger fireball erupted. Kim Min-jae's second shot was already fully charged. Yu Chan-suk raised a hand to stop him. "Wait, I'll pull back first, then you fire. Otherwise, if you hit me by mistake, that'll be troublesome." After Yu Chan-suk withdrew, Kim Min-jae fiercely launched the fireball. Like an unbridled beast, the fireball hurtled straight toward the monster pack. With a thunderous boom, the place where Yu Chan-suk had been standing moments ago exploded loudly, and he had already leaped out of range before the blast came down. Then he gripped his spear tightly and pressed forward again. At the moment the fireball landed, 2 monsters tried to use the chaos to escape, but there was no way Yu Chan-suk was going to let them go. A moment later, the smoke in the forest gradually dispersed. Yu Chan-suk drove his spear down and planted it firmly into the ground. The ambush had been extremely successful. The monsters were wiped out, but the 3 of them were exhausted as well. Yu Chan-suk was just about to praise the 2 of them when he suddenly sensed something wrong behind him. When he turned around, Kim Min-jae was actually aiming a handgun at Yu Chan-suk's head, his expression frighteningly serious. But in the next second, he smiled. "Could you move aside? You're blocking the direction I'm aiming at." Yu Chan-suk was speechless for a moment. He had thought Kim Min-jae was about to shoot him. In the next second, Kim Min-jae fired 2 shots into the monster corpses. He was implanting microchips into the bodies. Once the mission was over and safety was confirmed, the scrap recovery company contracted with him would come and collect them. So-called scrap recovery agents were people who specialized in recovering byproducts from corpses. After the chips were implanted, the recovery company would come deal with the bodies and collect all valuable materials. They would assess the value, sell the materials, and distribute the profit, first taking their commission according to the contract, then giving the remainder to the deceased hunter's family. Yu Chan-suk asked Kim Min-jae whether these people were reliable. Kim Min-jae said they were completely trustworthy. The key was to find the right recovery company and sign a contract in advance, and that step was extremely important. While they were chatting, one monster was hiding behind a tree, staring fixedly at them. In the next moment, the monster suddenly sprang up in an ambush, and the gravel on the ground was blasted flying in all directions by its strike. At that instant, Yu Chan-suk grabbed Kim Min-jae and directly pulled him out of that spot. Had they been even one step slower, both of them would have been badly injured. After retreating to a safe distance, Yu Chan-suk threw Kim Min-jae onto the ground and turned to stare at that monster. Kim Min-jae looked speechless. They had just cleared out a whole horde, and now another one had appeared? The monster let out a strange hey-how laugh and opened a mouth full of disgusting sharp fangs. Yu Chan-suk's gaze darkened further. This thing was probably the leader of the little monsters from earlier. The monster let out a roar, the sound booming through the forest as though it were summoning its kind. Yu Chan-suk cursed under his breath, "Damn it. Wouldn't it have been easier if you'd charged over with your underlings just now? Instead you had to wait and challenge the 3 of us now? You're asking to die." The leader monster continued its eerie laughter, and Yu Chan-suk could clearly feel the magic power coming from it. It was on a completely different level from those cannon fodder creatures. Yu Chan-suk shouted to the other 2, telling them not to interfere and to let him handle it alone. This monster was too strong, and if it started chasing them, none of them would be able to escape. The 2 of them froze on the spot. At this level, shouldn't the 3 of them join forces? Yu Chan-suk directly cut them off in a low voice. "I'll only say this once. Retreat. Don't make me say it a second time. Do you want to go back with your heads separated from your bodies?" As soon as those words came out, both of them stiffened instantly. It was harsh, and all too real. Yu Chan-suk shook out his spear and said coldly, "Listen to me and leave immediately. I'm actually better off alone here, because I can fight at full strength without any reservations." He roared, "Come on then, Bat Leader." Very quickly, Yu Chan-suk and the Bat Leader clashed head-on. Han Sang-a wanted to rush over and help, but Kim Min-jae grabbed her. Going over now would only hold him back. It looked as if Yu Chan-suk was being suppressed, but that was not the case at all, because not a single one of the Bat Leader's attacks hit him. Not even the edge of his clothes was touched. Han Sang-a could tell one more thing as well. Yu Chan-suk's speed and powers of observation were terrifyingly absurd. If she were up there, she would never be able to dodge that kind of barrage. At that moment, Yu Chan-suk twisted his waist and once again evaded the leader's punch. He dodged and counterattacked at the same time, and wherever his spear swept, black flames followed like a shadow. The more black flames accumulated, the slower the monster's movements became. So although Yu Chan-suk appeared to be struggling in a hard fight, in reality he was just toying with this leader as if it were prey. Han Sang-a was completely dumbstruck. Is he really a rookie hunter? Why does he look like someone who's fought countless brutal battles? At the same time, the leader monster lunged again, and Yu Chan-suk gave a low laugh. Good. Let me see whether you're worthy of forcing me to use my full strength. In the next second, Yu Chan-suk slid low across the ground and rapidly retreated, while at the same time hurling the spear in his hand violently into the air. Han Sang-a's eyes widened instantly. He threw his spear into the sky? What was he trying to do? The spear in the air slowly descended, while the leader monster continued closing in on Yu Chan-suk. Kim Min-jae was bewildered too, throwing away his weapon at a time like this? In that split second, the leader monster had already pounced right in front of Yu Chan-suk. But Yu Chan-suk did not panic in the slightest and merely stared at it expressionlessly. With a wet sound, the monster's head slowly fell in front of Yu Chan-suk. So the spear he had thrown into the air was the final killing move. It pierced through the monster's neck the instant it fell. Even with its neck pierced through by the spear, it was still able to struggle, and Yu Chan-suk had to admit that its vitality really was tenacious. But unfortunately for it, the outcome was already decided. He had to finish it immediately and absolutely could not give it any chance to turn the tables. Then, right before the horrified eyes of the other two, Yu Chan-suk pulled out the spear and madly stabbed at the monster's head. Kim Min-jae's scalp went numb. How could this be? Just now it had clearly looked as though Yu Chan-suk was being overwhelmed. But in the blink of an eye the monster had fallen. What exactly had happened? Yu Chan-suk turned back and called out to Kim Min-jae, "Is it normal for this kind of monster to appear here?" Kim Min-jae also became suspicious. Judging from the strength of an individual like this, even if it was not a corrosion unit core, it at least meant this place ought to be rated level 3. Corrosion units were divided into 4 grades, and the operation briefing had said that Jiadong Island's Alpha Corrosion Unit was still unrated. Then that means Jiadong Island's Alpha Corrosion Unit has already risen to level 3. This must be reported immediately. Han Sang-a was not quite willing to believe it, and Yu Chan-suk told her to think calmly. If it were not level 3, there was no way to explain the current strength of these monsters. As Yu Chan-suk analyzed this, Kim Min-jae's face completely changed as well. The gap between unrated and level 3 was the difference between 2 worlds. If it really had risen to level 3, very few hunters would likely make it back alive. This island was too dangerous, and it had to be reported as an urgent matter. Kim Min-jae suggested that they first go save the other hunters. With Yu Chan-suk's strength, he should be able to hold out even against a level 3 threat. Yu Chan-suk rejected it on the spot. There was no way he could single-handedly find and save every hunter on the island. He had limits, and what he could not do, he simply could not do. Yu Chan-suk seriously told the two of them that their mission was not rescue, but to confirm and eliminate any additional corrosion rifts that had appeared, and moreover, work of this kind could never guarantee 0 casualties from the beginning. Han Sang-a suddenly asked Yu Chan-suk a question. If you were in that kind of desperate situation, what do you think you would be like? Yu Chan-suk did not understand for a moment. Han Sang-a pressed further. If you ran into danger, wouldn't you feel wronged, resentful, or even pray for someone to come save you? Yu Chan-suk's expression darkened instantly. Do you want to save people by imagining the mindset of the dead? It's not that I don't understand emotion. I'm talking about results. If you really want to go save them, I won't stop you, but put away that damned saint complex of yours. Some deaths are unavoidable. When facing that kind of death, no matter what I think, I will still die with the resolve to die. If, in order to save a few hunters, I let the rift worsen and cause even more people to die here, that would be my sin. In a desperate situation, the one thing you cannot do is waver. If you still carry that sort of mindset while carrying out missions, you won't live long in this world. That night, they found a place to rest. They entered a private house, and the whole building was empty, with no sign that corrosion monsters had ever stayed there. Kim Min-jae checked the place over and confirmed that there was nothing unusual, except that it was too dark. But because of those lights, they would be able to see the positions of the other hunters clearly. Yet in Yu Chan-suk's view, the lights would expose their own position as well, and that made things more dangerous instead. If it were only cannon fodder, being exposed would not matter. But if another creature on the level of the bat leader showed up, then they would be in trouble. So Yu Chan-suk took out his phone and sent a warning to the other hunters. This is Squad 8. Based on the monster level we encountered, the Alpha Corrosion Unit may have risen to level 3. Turning on lights carelessly may attract high-risk individuals, so please avoid it as much as possible. As long as the core of a corrosion rift was destroyed, all corrosion creatures would disappear. Once their energy supply was cut off, the corrosion zone would also recede. Yu Chansuk thought it over. It actually did not sound that complicated. So why were they making it sound so difficult? Once the time was right, he would go and deal with the corrosion rift himself. Soon, it was deep into the night, and Han Sang-a had already fallen asleep. Aside from her, Kim Min-jae was asleep too. Yu Chansuk placed an alarm device beside them. The device would sound an alert if monsters approached, so he could leave without worry. He walked out of the house, his figure moving rapidly through the forest. Fortunately, the briefing had marked the Alpha's location, so this operation should have gone smoothly. But just then, Yu Chansuk sensed that something was wrong. There was movement ahead, and he abruptly stopped, looked up, and heard a familiar eerie laugh. I knew it was going too smoothly. So it's you again. Without hesitation, he ignited his flames. But when he turned his head and got a clear look, he realized it was not the creature he had expected. He had never seen this face before. It was several times larger than him, completely beyond comparison with the Bat Leader. At the same time, an emergency suddenly broke out at Hunter Association Central. The signals of some hunters from Squad 5 had been cut off, and they were presumed dead. Management was stunned on the spot, and then they received death reports from other squads as well. Damn it, what exactly has been happening since just now? He immediately ordered his subordinates to contact headquarters for reinforcements, while also sending an emergency distress message to all hunters on the island. Soon, more intelligence came in. Someone was approaching the Alpha Core's location. The chief immediately told them to send a warning to stop that person. There was an extremely dangerous monster ahead. But only afterward did they learn that the person rushing toward the Alpha Center was actually Yu Chansuk of Squad 8. He was the first to find the core. The chief ordered his men to connect to Yu Chansuk's terminal immediately and confirm whether he was still alive. After all, something like a corrosion core upgrading had never happened before. Yu Chansuk had been the first to charge toward the core amid the chaos, so he had to be monitored in real time. Very soon, the terminal connected, and on the screen, Yu Chansuk was being hunted by a monster. Rather than a battle, it was more like he was desperately running for his life. The monster was stronger and faster than they had imagined. Then Hunter Central heard Yu Chansuk's voice. The monster behind me is absurdly strong. The fact that I'm still alive is pure luck. Didn't you say this place had already been investigated? Then why is there no intel? You bastards. When I get back, I'm going to stuff the corrosion core into every one of your mouths. Hearing that speech, they only wanted to mute the terminal. Confirming that he was still alive was enough. With his current strength, Yu Chansuk still could not kill something of this level. He could only chip away at it little by little and then finish it off with his spear at the end. But the monster before him completely exceeded expectations. It showed no signs of going down at all. After his battle with the Bat Leader during the day, Yu Chansuk had drawn too much magic power from Giant-On Island, which left him weaker now instead. So he could not leave Giant-On Island. He had to immediately find a place on the island where he could draw magic power. A glint flashed in Yu Chansuk's eyes. He had actually found a target that quickly. Ahead of him, a black opening had split open in the ground. Without hesitating, Yu Chansuk jumped straight in. He even turned back and shouted to the huge thing behind him, "Follow me. I just happen to have something I want to check." On the other side, Hunter Headquarters completely lost the signal from Yu Chansuk's terminal, because he had entered the Alpha Corrosion Core. Hearing that news, the chief's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Damn it. After entering the interior of the core, Yu Chansuk found that it was far cleaner than he had imagined. He could not help thinking, if even the spread of an unrated and a level 3 wasn't that fast, then just how outrageous would level 1 and level 2 be? A moment later, he cleared the boundary of the corrosion rift. What he had to face next was that giant thing. I'm not someone who likes fighting to the death, but if this thing keeps chasing me, I'll get angry too. Yu Chansuk slowly tightened his grip on the weapon in his hand and recalled one of the deadliest problems of the Flames of Paradox. One of the biggest problems with the Flames of Paradox was that they would spread to every living being except Yu Chansuk himself. Even allies were no exception. That was what made them so terrifying. So once the blaze exceeded the level he could control, he could no longer use it. That was a hard limitation. At that moment, a monster appeared in front of Yu Chansuk. He thrust out with his spear in a sudden strike and hit the monster dead on. The monster let out a scream, then went still. Done. Afterward, Yu Chansuk began absorbing the magic power in the air, and guided it into his body, forcibly storing it there. Magic power surged through every corner of his body, widening his channels and making his pathways tougher. Yu Chansuk let out a long breath, and an even faint demonic energy spilled from his mouth. The effect was absurdly strong, far beyond his expectations. But just then, it seemed as if a crack had opened in the sky. Yu Chansuk glanced upward, and instead of being afraid, he calmed down. Even now, it was not over. A moment later, several more monsters identical to the previous one crawled out of the crack. Unfortunately for them, they had come too late. Yu Chansuk's tempering was already complete, and he had no fear of them at all. Very soon, the three monsters lunged at him together. Yu Chansuk shook his spear and sneered, "Brainless things, do you still think having numbers on your side is useful now?" In the next second, the burst of magic power he unleashed directly shredded them cleanly, and they could not even touch the edge of his clothes. Yu Chansuk was now several times stronger than before, but he was still far from his peak in the other world. Proportionally speaking, he had probably only recovered about 1%. But just then, a figure suddenly flashed out behind Yu Chansuk, trying to ambush him. That made his heart sink. When had this thing gotten so close? Yu Chansuk almost instantly opened distance the moment the other side moved. The opponent had a humanoid body and a rat's head. Its level was clearly above that of an ordinary core entity. Instead, Yu Chansuk became interested. At this level, how many chain strikes could it withstand from him? In the next moment, Yu Chansuk charged fiercely forward, his spear whistling explosively through the air. He thrust once with the spear, only for the rat-headed monster to block it by force. The rat-headed monster even mocked him. "Your strike is too slow." But what it did not know was that while the speed of Yu Chansuk's thrust had not been full power, the force behind it was overwhelming, and fine cracks had already appeared on its weapon. Yu Chansuk locked his eyes on it and enunciated slowly, "Twin Moon Spear, first strike, pierce." In the next second, the rat-headed monster was blasted flying by magic power, and Yu Chansuk took the chance to pursue, directly crushing the tempo. The rat-headed monster did not even understand what had just happened. Twin Moon Spear was Yu Chansuk's technique. His attack path would leave behind blue trails, and those trails could repeat the route of the first strike and reproduce it 4 complete times. If he attacked along those trails, that would merely be the simplest form of landing 4 consecutive hits. But what was truly terrifying was, the blue trajectories could autonomously pursue the target, like 2 returning eyes that were nearly impossible to evade. Against this kind of delayed chained attack, what could it possibly use to turn the situation around? The rat-headed monster was struck again, and so long as it exposed even the slightest opening, Yu Chansuk could kill it instantly. And now was the moment to finish things. In the next second, Yu Chansuk unleashed a series of blows onto its body. Each strike carried 4 layered impacts, and its body was nearly torn apart. Before long, even its head was reduced to only half. You didn't think disappearing would mean this was over, did you? But just as Yu Chansuk was about to continue the combo, a box suddenly appeared in his hand. Yu Chansuk slowly opened the box. The moment he saw what was inside, his whole body froze. At the same time, Hunter Central had long since descended into chaos. The corrosion rift was spreading outward from the center of Jiadong Island. Squad signals were being cut off one after another, and panic pressed down like a tidal wave. Watching all this, the chief felt his hands and feet go cold. This had completely exceeded the contingency plan. His eyes were full of helplessness. Is this really the end? Unless a miracle happens, all we can do is stand here and watch the hunters be wiped out. At that moment, a subordinate suddenly called out to him, "Chief, come here quickly." The subordinate reported that a hunter who had entered the Alpha Core region had sent back a message. He immediately put the message on the big screen and synced it across all channels. Everyone could see Yu Chansuk's notice. Yu Chansuk's message was very simple. The corrosion core signal had disappeared, confirmed eliminated. All corrosion entities encountered by the hunters had also been confirmed gone. The chief looked at the screen and barely dared breathe. He had witnessed a miracle with his own eyes. After sending the message, Yu Chansuk finally let out a long breath. He looked up at the starry sky, and there were still many stars. More importantly, the air was clean, far better than in the other world. Time went back to 2 minutes earlier, when a huge swarm of monsters had been pouring out of the rift. Han Sang-a instantly led the fight against them, her body already covered in multiple wounds. Her hand could barely hold the blade, but in the next second, as if grasping her last conviction, she braced her arm with her right hand and forced herself to grip the hilt again. She stared straight ahead. There were several times more monsters than yesterday. Worse still, after waking up, they had not found Yu Chansuk anywhere. At that moment, Kim Min-jae called out to her from behind. "Miss Han, do you think we can still make it back alive? I'm starting to panic." It was no surprise that he was panicking. The monsters ahead were packed so densely they looked black, and if they all rushed forward together, the 2 of them would be trampled to death. Han Sang-a turned and glanced at Kim Min-jae. He too had reached his limit. She did not know whether they could survive, nor how much longer she could hold on, but she absolutely could not collapse now. In the next second, one ugly monster lunged at Han Sang-a. Han Sang-a's gaze turned icy, and her body sank slightly as the power of lightning burst forth in an instant. But then she realized, her legs had gone numb. She did not even know when it had started, but the worst part right now was that 3 more monsters were closing in on her at the same time. Kim Min-jae was frantic with anxiety, but he had no strength left to support her. The monster was just about to sink its teeth into Han Sang-a's neck. Kim Min-jae even wanted to close his eyes. He could not bear to watch what came next. But 5 seconds passed, and the scream they had expected never came. The instant they opened their eyes, the sight before them was chilling. The monsters in front of them, all of them had vanished, leaving behind only a ground full of bone dust. The next day, Yu Chan-suk met up with them at the Hunter Assembly Point on Jiadon Island. The moment he saw the scene, Yu Chan-suk's expression instantly darkened. He had not expected there to be this many injured. Could it be that while he was gone, the corrosion rift had gone berserk? When everyone saw Yu Chan-suk appear, they all looked shocked. This guy had really cleared a level 3 corrosion rift by himself. But then they looked again at Yu Chan-suk's somewhat lean build, and no matter how they looked at it, he did not seem like someone capable of clearing a level 3 threat. After walking a little farther, Yu Chan-suk found the members of Squad 8. Kim Min-jae was stunned on the spot. He had never imagined that Yu Chan-suk would truly be able to resolve the corrosion rift alone. Yu Chan-suk let out a cold laugh. Let's just say this body moved on its own. All for the sake of protecting my fellow hunters. Everything had gone too smoothly, and Yu Chan-suk knew he needed to play the good guy again and quickly wash away that villainous aura from before. At that moment, someone called out to Yu Chan-suk from behind, and then someone called out to him again from behind. He introduced himself as Park Jong-tae, branch manager of the Korea Operations Company. Yu Chan-suk glanced at him and asked directly, "Was it you who called me here?" The man told Yu Chan-suk to come with him. The mayor wanted to see him. Yu Chan-suk had lost count of how many times he had been summoned by now. These old men just loved ordering people around. Still, he also remembered one thing. The contract had not specified any additional reward for clearing a level 3 threat. Since he was already here, he might as well negotiate the price while he was at it. The moment Yu Chan-suk got out of the car, a man came up to greet him proactively. The other man introduced himself as Lee Pil-jae, a liaison officer responsible for communication and cooperation. As they walked, he said, "The mayor has been looking forward to this meeting for a long time." When he received the Giant Island report at dawn, he was stunned on the spot. The chairman immediately told him to arrange a meeting, and he even cancelled all his scheduled appointments just to speak with you. A rookie destroying a level 3 origin point alone. Nothing like that has happened since the senior hunters of the first generation. Yu Chan-suk had not expected that someone in the past had accomplished it too. It seemed that person really had been formidable. Yu Chan-suk arrived smoothly at the mayor's office. A slightly chubby man stood up. "Welcome. My name is Park Jian, the mayor of the city. I'm sorry to have called you here on such a gloomy day." He invited Yu Chan-suk to a cafe, wanting to sit down and have a proper talk. As the mayor of Incheon, Jiadong Island had always been a source of worry for him, but due to budget limitations, it was very difficult to hire an expensive guild. Yu Chan-suk sipped his tea, thinking only of how to squeeze a hefty sum out of him. After learning that Yu Chan-suk was still a rookie, the mayor instead seemed quite proud. Yu Chan-suk did not quite understand. Why had this man suddenly gotten excited? It turned out that Incheon was one of Korea's core regions, and thanks to the infrastructure around Incheon Airport, logistics flowed constantly through it. On top of that, with the Free Economic Zone project, international cities like Songdo and Changya attracted massive amounts of foreign capital. With so many options, it was dizzying. Huge sums of money passed through Incheon's international urban zones, and goods were transferred through the airport. He would ensure that Yu Chan-suk's path as a hunter would be smooth all the way, paved with success. At that moment, Yu Chan-suk interrupted him, because he wanted to ask a question first. "If you're giving me this much support, then I'd have to give something back too, right? For example, helping a mayor whose approval rating is dropping get re-elected?" The mayor gave a dry cough. "Your information network is impressive. Smartphones really can do anything." Yu Chan-suk had already looked it up online. The mayor's term would end early at the beginning of next year. Judging from the situation, the mainstream view was that re-election was hopeless. Cold sweat formed on the chairman's temples. "You speak very directly. But if you want to get involved in a request like that, wouldn't you also need permission from the Incheon city government? A public notice would not do." As a rookie, Yu Chan-suk indeed needed the mayor's permission to enter. If handled properly, he could even spread the story everywhere that Yu Chan-suk was a genius discovered by Jean of the guild. He wanted to write Yu Chan-suk into his own book of achievements and snatch the credit along the way. The mayor continued, relying on that infrastructure. He had connections with many overseas and domestic companies. He pressed a coffee package on the table as an example. The modeling contract for this brand was about to expire, and he could put Yu Chan-suk's face on it. And that was not all. There were many more possibilities he could offer. But right then, Yu Chan-suk cut him off directly. "In your eyes, I'm cheap, aren't I? That's what you're thinking." The mayor's expression stiffened, and he was clearly a little unable to save face. The mayor tried to explain. "I've seen the news. This world urgently needs a new face to change this gloomy atmosphere." Yu Chon-suk's gaze instantly turned cold. What I mean is, you say you can give me everything, but all those things were things I was bound to seize with my own hand sooner or later anyway. Don't you think this deal is unfair? The mayor then threw out even more conditions, such as screening safe, high-paying commissions for Yu Chon-suk. But in Yu Chon-suk's eyes, the proposal was mind-numbingly boring. Yu Chon-suk waved a hand and stood up to leave. Please congratulate that coffee model for me. Because I refused, he gets to keep endorsing it. On the other side of Jayadong, two people were standing in the shadows. One of the men spoke. It seemed that the experiment on Jayadong Island had failed. The man kneeling on the ground could only keep apologizing. But there is also some good news. Hearing the words good news, the man's eyes finally showed interest, and the good news the kneeling man referred to was an edited clip from the Hunter qualification exam. The video recorded Yu Chon-suk using the flames of paradox. The man watched the video, and a smile rose at the corner of his mouth. Truly impressive, this rookie. The scene shifted, and after the mission on Jayadong Island in Incheon was completed, the National Hunter rankings, updated on the first of every month, were reshuffled. This was the moment everyone looked forward to most each month. No matter how old you were waiting for this ranking list to come out. Everyone wanted to know who had taken first place this month. Even hunters kept their eyes on it. Usually the rankings did not change much and were more for public viewing, but this time was different. Soon, the ranking list was delivered into the hands of Hunter Association Chairman Moon Jong-tae. Chairman, this is the September World Hunter Ranking Report. Please review it. Meanwhile, far away on the battlefield, Lee Se-yoon was also watching the rankings closely, wanting to know whether Yu Chon-suk had made the list. At this moment, Yu Chon-suk was sitting in a chair, flipping through the newly released rankings. No matter how flashy the presentation was, the only part that truly carried weight was always the top 10. He quickly opened the ranking page. Rank 10, Swordswoman Lee Se-yoon. Rank 5, Throwing Knife Kim Chae-yoon. Rank 3, Fire God Choi Yeo-yoon. Rank 2, Strongman Jang Tae-suk. Just as Yu Chon-suk was about to open the number 1 rank, there suddenly came a knock at the door behind him. He turned around and saw a venue staff member. Sorry to keep you waiting. You may go out now. And the number 1 spot on the ranking, rising star Yu Chon-suk. The headline even read, he has set the fastest promotion speed in history. If a veteran hunter with 5 years of experience cleared a level 3 corrosion zone alone, it might only count as a routine achievement. In the hunter community, it would not be particularly unusual. But if this was a rookie hunter's first mission, then it was an entirely different matter. When Yu Chon-suk stepped onto the venue stage, the crowd below instantly erupted. Mr. Yu Chon-suk, what did you do before becoming a hunter? Did you really clear the corrosion zone without backup? Did you foresee that the area would upgrade? Questions crashed over him like a tide. Yu Chon-suk let out a long sigh. He felt like one of those children on genius shows and only wanted to answer quickly and leave. Soon, a young man stood up and asked loudly, everyone is very curious about your future. Could you talk about your hunter mindset, or your resolve? Yu Chon-suk had no intention of giving those official lines. He did not want to say a single thing like I'll work hard. He only replied with one sentence. I speak through results. Just use your eyes to look at my results. After answering, Yu Chon-suk boarded a helicopter. Below the cabin was a gigantic black pit. This place had once seen a brutal battle. The person behind him explained to Yu Chon-suk. This scene was terrifying, and overseas it was even worse. After corrosion zones appeared, most countries had already lost administrative capacity. But Korea was different. It had managed to avoid many bloody battles through certain means. Many foreign countries, however, had been swallowed up the instant corrosion zones appeared, and the nations themselves had simply vanished. There were 8 major danger zones among the corrosion zones, the 8 most dangerous places in the world, and the one on the right was Gonzalok. Several years ago, Gonzalok had suddenly appeared, madly expanding outward in a huge circle from the city center. So fast that no one had time to react, directly causing a country to perish. Although some people had barely survived, for those trapped inside the corrosion zone, most had been swallowed before they could even escape. The disappearance of a country was like dust blown away by the wind, without a trace. Looking out the window, the chairman continued, a nation's influence might not necessarily change in the age of corrosion, but internal power within central governments had already clearly weakened. Yu Chon-suk understood even less. What did any of this have to do with summoning him here? The chairman said that a few days earlier, Yoon Sung-hyun of the Grand Purity Guild had come to visit him and had been very dissatisfied that Yu Chon-suk had not joined his team. Yu Chon-suk remembered that big guy, but had not taken him seriously at all. But the chairman's next sentence made his expression freeze. Yoon Sung-hyun had actually demanded to know Yu Chon-suk's address immediately. At the time, Yoon Sung-hyun had come on very aggressively, and the chairman had not leaked any private information. But the Grand Purity Guild believed in the law of the strong, and even the chairman could not guarantee that the other side would not force Yu Chon-suk into joining. Yu Chon-suk felt annoyed. Trouble had come knocking. Although he did not take the other man seriously, with his current strength, he really could not beat him. The chairman observed, "Judging from your recent actions, you seem more accustomed to acting alone." Yu Chan-suk admitted it. He had always been that way, and did not want to have his hands tied by a guild title. The chairman handed Yu Chan-suk a bag. "If you want them not to dare come near you, then you need to become stronger. For example, take on the important mission I'm giving you." Yu Chan-suk had known the chairman was not that simple, but this still counted as the other man helping him once. He asked clearly, what did he want in return? He never believed in free lunches. But the chairman's answer sounded very familiar. He only wanted Yu Chan-suk to remember that he had helped Yu Chan-suk, just like Lee Se-yoon's line of thinking. Yu Chan-suk reached out and took the bag. He would remember the information inside clearly, and this deal was not a loss. The chairman's mission itself would add to his prestige. "Go on, what exactly do you want me to do?" "You are to escort a cargo ship from Busan to Nanning. In the age of corrosion, transporting daily necessities is difficult." When Yu Chan-suk saw clearly what those daily necessities were, he froze on the spot. Rolex watches, high-end porcelain, ginseng liquor, pu'er tea, and even luxury cars. He began to wonder whether the definition of daily necessities had changed over the past 20 years. The chairman said, for certain people, these were daily necessities. He had originally thought Yu Chan-suk would understand that too, but he suddenly stopped there. He realized that the 20 years he had just blurted out was off. Yu Chan-suk could not understand it at all. In a country where the central government was practically on the verge of collapse, why were they still transporting this kind of garbage? The chairman explained, many countries had fallen apart under corrosion, but international politics still had meaning. To put it bluntly, these were simply lubricants for maintaining relationships, in essence, bribes. If that's the case, then I refuse. As he spoke, Yu Chan-suk had already undone the seat belt at his waist. Sweat appeared on the chairman's forehead. Wait, the Korean government considers this task extremely important. Yu Chan-suk told him not to bother trying to persuade him. His thinking would not change. For an individual to get dragged into a political vortex was foolish. The chairman said coldly, "Hunter Yu Chan-suk, this may be rude of me to say, but you are only a rookie who has just debuted. Excessive attention is already like poison to you." In the next second, an incomprehensible expression appeared on the chairman's face. Because Yu Chan-suk took everything in the bag and directly threw it all into the sea. These so-called necessities had no value whatsoever to Yu Chan-suk and would only bring trouble. Standing by the helicopter window, Yu Chan-suk turned back and said to the chairman, "Thank you for the helicopter ride. I'll figure out a way to swim back to Seoul." The chairman's face instantly stiffened. He could not keep up with Yu Chan-suk's logic at all. Yu Chan-suk pushed off with his foot and left the helicopter directly. He leaped out and plunged into the sea below. The chairman rushed to the cabin door. He doesn't actually intend to swim back by physical strength alone, does he? Yu Chan-suk hit the water with a huge splash. The chairman looked speechless. Young people these days are really too impulsive. Time quickly reached dusk, and the scene shifted to Incheon port. At one spot in the harbor, someone was staring fixedly at the sea, because he saw bubbles constantly rising on the surface, as if something were about to come up. In the next second, a hand burst out of the water and clutched the steps by the shore. Right after that, Yu Chan-suk hauled himself onto land and brushed back his hair. "I'm exhausted. I almost thought I was going to die. Who threatens people like that?" When he turned his head, he found that there was actually someone standing beside him. The passerby said slowly, "I don't know what you've been through, but you must have been through a lot." After climbing ashore, Yu Chan-suk set his goal very clearly. What he needed to do now was build up his strength. By then, no one would be able to control him. Those lofty powerhouses would also be trampled beneath his feet. Very soon, Yu Chan-suk took out his phone and checked the mission details. One mission in particular caught his interest, a kidnapping case in which the victim needed support from association hunters. The estimated rift level was around level 2. Yu Chan-suk sat atop a construction machine and watched the sunset, slowly exhaling. It seemed that from here on, he was going to be busy for a while. On September 3rd, fishermen from Jeoji Island in Tongyeong set out to sea to welcome the peak shrimp fishing season. But something major happened during this catch. Rift monsters built nests on the island and abducted all the fishermen as if they were hunting prey. According to one survivor who had luckily escaped, the abducted fishermen were still alive. Therefore, the association released a mission: rescue the hostages and eliminate the Rift monsters. If Yu Chan-suk succeeded alone, he might even get a hero story, directly boosting his reputation. This mission was worth challenging, but the risks were equally enormous. Yu Chan-suk had heard that the higher the monster level, the more they seemed to belong to a completely different dimension. Level 3 individuals had destructive power on the level of tanks. Level 2, meanwhile, was like a natural disaster. Level 1 was an outright nightmare. Fighting a single one required the strength of an entire nation. Yu Chan-suk was worrying about whom to team up with when a figure suddenly appeared in his mind. If it was her, there should be no problem. Very soon, it was the day of the mission, and Yu Chan-suk stood there with his spear on his shoulder, waiting to arrive at the destination. He heard a girl calling his name from behind, and this woman was his teammate, Han Sang-ae. Yu Chan-suk, how much longer until we reach the island? Yu Chan-suk checked their position. About another hour. He reminded her to conserve her strength and said he would call her when they arrived. Just as he had said, this battle would be harder than the last one. But Han Sang-ae did not seem to take his words in and instead focused on the armor on his shoulder. That's the Iron Wing Angel arm guard, right? Judging from the texture of the leather finish, it's even a limited edition. How did you get it? Yu Chan-suk said it was a gift from a scrap recovery dealer. But Han Sang-ae had also signed with a recovery dealer and had gotten nothing at all. Yu Chan-suk gave her a look of obvious disdain. Do you even need to ask? We're not in the same league at all. I'm the rising star who soloed a level 3 rift, and you're just a rookie female hunter hiding behind the title of Academy Honor Student. Han Sang-ae clenched her teeth, her eyes full of unwillingness. Silently, she swore that she would become famous and show Yu Chan-suk. Time returned to a few days earlier. At that time, Yu Chan-suk had called Han Sang-ae and asked whether she wanted to team up with him for a mission. After hearing the mission summary, she immediately broke into a sweat. Last time, she had nearly died in a third-tier battle. Yu Chan-suk waited for a moment, but there was still silence on the other end of the phone, so he spoke. Don't you want to become stronger? That sentence made Han Sang-ae's pupils tremble. Yu Chan-suk continued pressing her. On the last mission, I heard you say it myself. If I remember correctly, you wanted to learn my way of fighting. If you still want that, I can teach you. I can guarantee that if you stay by my side and learn, you'll become several times stronger than you are now. With that one sentence, Yu Chan-suk persuaded her, and the team-up was successfully settled. Han Sang-ae had a reason she absolutely had to become stronger, even if that road was as dangerous as a blade's edge. As long as she could become stronger, even if hell lay ahead, she would not frown. Seeing that determination in her, Yu Chan-suk suddenly became interested in her. What exactly had this girl gone through? Not long afterward, they saw an unidentified object ahead. The two of them instantly grew tense. There were 5 boats up ahead in total. Yu Chan-suk found it a little troublesome. To get there, they would have to cross over silently, and there were civilians on the boats as well. But just as he finished speaking, a pair of shoes behind him suddenly floated up on their own. At that moment, Han Sang-ae was already suspended in midair. Yu Chan-suk had not expected that she actually had this kind of ability. Han Sang-ae burst out laughing. So there are things even you can't do. If you can't even do something this simple, you're really ridiculous. But what she did not know was that the instant she laughed out loud, Yu Chan-suk's face had already darkened completely. In the next second, Yu Chan-suk knocked her on the forehead with one punch and made her carry him while flying. And one more thing, don't splash water onto my clothes. I just bought these. Suddenly, Yu Chan-suk seemed to catch something and looked sharply toward the boats ahead. He told Han Sang-ae to approach the nearest one first, because he could feel fluctuations in magic power. The farther back they went, the stronger it became, and danger was approaching. A moment later, Han Sang-ae brought Yu Chan-suk down beside one of the boats. What confused her was that there was actually a figure standing on the deck. Almost at the same time, Yu Chan-suk stepped onto the deck with one foot. He told Han Sang-ae to open her eyes and look carefully. There was no way a human could move like that. Ahead on the deck, there was actually a huge group of zombies. Han Sang-ae landed heavily on the deck. Yu Chan-suk frowned and reminded her not to land like that. It would hurt her knees, and over time her body would wear out very quickly. And besides, you landed with such a big noise that you've already drawn all the zombies over. Han Sang-ae did not take those zombies seriously at all and directly stomped down, unleashing her power with a violent burst. If she could not even handle basic zombies like these, then she had no right to live. With a few sharp sounds, Han Sang-ae slashed out fierce arcs of sword light that pierced straight through the zombies' bodies. Yu Chan-suk nodded and praised her for doing well. These zombies were not high level, at most the lowest of the second rate. Logically, Han Sang-ae should have been able to clear them easily. But in the very next moment, Yu Chan-suk was nearly caught in the stray electricity she unleashed. Yu Chan-suk immediately started cursing. You idiot. You're using your magic power far too wastefully. If you burn through it like that, you'll hit empty in no time. Against low-level zombies, basic techniques are enough. Han Sang-ae's heart gave a slight jolt. He was already starting to teach her? Yu Chan-suk had said before that if he taught her, she could become several times stronger. That was also why she had agreed to team up with him, so she would listen to what Yu Chan-suk said. Han Sang-ae curled her lips. Fine, I used too much just now, so I'll hold back this time. After saying that, she raised a hand, condensed strong electricity again, and tore the zombie apart by force. The zombie was cleared, but Yu Chan-suk still felt she was overdoing it. She had to conserve even more. From then on, Yu Chan-suk corrected her all the way, making her use a little less magic power every time she attacked. Under his pressuring style of instruction, Han Sang-ae also began to truly learn how to control her output. Han Sang-ae had had a miserable childhood, so she swore never again to live in the posture of the weak. She would personally stop that endlessly spreading darkness. Becoming stronger was her only path. Suddenly, one zombie lunged ferociously at Han Sang-ae. At the very instant its fangs were about to bite into Han Sang-ae, a bolt of lightning pierced through at a speed the naked eye could not follow. When the lightning fell, that zombie was split cleanly in two. At that moment, the pressure radiating from Han Sang-ae was terrifying. If it would make her stronger, she was willing to jump even into the abyss. As the last nearby zombie fell, Han Sang-ae finally let out a breath of relief. Immediately after, Yu Chan-suk leaped to the other side. The threats on the other boats had already all been cleared by him. Han Sang-ae frankly admitted that she still had not reached Yu Chan-suk's level, and thanked him for his guidance. She really had gained a lot. Yu Chan-suk waved it off. There were too many idiots in this world. And even if you stuffed the answers into their mouths, they still might not swallow them. This was actually the first time Yu Chan-suk had seriously given someone advice. Han Sang-ae replied helplessly, ever since she started learning quickly, people around her had always said she was annoying. Yu Chan-suk suddenly changed the subject. If I keep teaching you like this, maybe you'll become even stronger than me, right? Han Sang-ae's expression dimmed. I've never thought about surpassing any teacher. Hearing that, Yu Chan-suk felt a little awkward for a moment. He immediately turned forceful again. Don't worry, that kind of thing won't happen to me. I'll make sure you can only look up at me for the rest of your life. Not long afterward, they successfully reached the mission's designated location. The person who came to meet them shouted loudly, "We'll be standing by on Geoj Island. We wish you a smooth trip." Yu Chan-suk answered blandly, "You do your best too." According to the survivors' intelligence, the hostages were being held near a shrine. Han Sang-ae added that there were two shrines on the island, namely Gaijin Shrine and Atazumi Shrine. Yu Chan-suk made a quick judgment. Judging by the distance, Gaijin Shrine should be the first target. At their speed, they could reach it in a few hours. At the same time, Yu Chan-suk was calculating in his mind. They were moving with the light now, but the return trip would definitely look very different. The report showed that there were 15 hostages, and if even one of them was injured, the difficulty of evacuation would double. And he could also sense a chilling magic power, far colder than the previous mist. The corrosion creatures across the entire island would hunt them down, in order to avoid being ambushed during the rescue and to bring all the hostages back safely. They would need at least one vehicle. Yu Chan-suk turned and asked Han Sang-ae, "Are your driving skills any good?" Han Sang-ae answered without hesitation, "Of course they are. How could they not be?" In the next second, the car shot forward with a roar. Yu Chan-suk immediately confirmed it. Han Sang-ae really did drive fast. And behind them, a horde of zombies was also chasing wildly. Yu Chan-suk could not help shouting, "Are the brakes on this car just for decoration? If you don't like it, then drive it yourself." Yu Chan-suk grabbed the car window and flipped himself onto the roof, cursing inwardly that this girl drove way too recklessly. But it was still more useful than his driver's license that had been gathering dust for 20 years. But compared with driving, he was obviously much better at killing. He gripped his spear tightly and locked onto the monster horde behind them. And in the next instant, the spear thrust out violently, piercing straight through a zombie skull and splitting it in half on the spot. After that, he held onto the seatbelt and shifted to the other side of the car, while loudly warning, "There are monsters charging in from the left." Hearing that, Han Sang-ae jerked the steering wheel hard. After plowing through a small group of zombies, she became even more excited instead. "You monsters, all of you get back onto the sidewalk." Yu Chan-suk sighed inwardly. Maybe he really should be the one driving. Just like that, Han Sang-ae sped all the way on, and soon they were about to reach the shrine. But the zombies behind them were gathering in greater and greater numbers. Yu Chan-suk said in a low voice, "Leave these monsters to me. Since you insist on chasing us, then I'll wipe you out all at once." In the next moment, purple flames rose around Yu Chan-suk, and he immediately sent a raging wave of fire toward the zombie horde. In his mind he calculated, as long as he burned through the stairs leading here, they would never be able to catch up again. A short while later, the two of them arrived at the place where the hostages were being held. Han Sang-ae bent down and softly asked one hostage whose eyes were open, "I'm Han Sang-ae from the Hunter Association. Are you alright?" But the moment the man heard her voice, he immediately opened his mouth and drooled, then started struggling wildly, trying to break free of the ropes. Han Sang-ae instantly panicked and hurriedly explained, "I'm not here to capture you. I'm here to save you." But the man suddenly roared, "Run!" Han Sang-ae froze in place, unable to react in time. In the next second, a ferocious ghost samurai appeared silently behind her and slashed its long blade straight toward her back. At the critical moment, Yu Chan-suk stepped in front of her and firmly blocked the fatal blow. He turned his head and urged Han Sang-ae, "Get all the survivors into the car. Leave this to me." But in the very next moment, the ghost samurai swung again, and Yu Chan-suk raised his hand and blocked it hard. It leaped into the air, and the second strike came crashing down from above. At the instant the blade pressure descended, Yu Chan-suk gritted his teeth and endured it head-on. Just as the first blade was about to fall right in front of Yu Chan-suk, Han Sang-ae suddenly slammed on the accelerator and, with a thunderous crash, rammed the ghost samurai flying. She shouted, "Get in the car." Seeing how fierce she was, Yu Chan-suk gave her a thumbs up on the spot. Yu Chan-suk asked her, "Did you get all the hostages out?" She replied, "They're all rescued, but look ahead first." Yu Chan-suk turned and looked, and saw countless zombies staring fixedly at them. His heart sank. That samurai had been sent flying, and it was still alive. He immediately turned back to Han Sang-ae and told her to lend him her sword. Han Sang-ae cried out, "Are you crazy? Asking a swordsman for their sword is a huge insult." Yu Chan-suk lowered his voice. "A swordsman's pride or human lives, you choose." Han Sang-ae fell silent for a moment, but in the end she still threw him the sword. Yu Chan-suk gripped the sword and tested its feel, inwardly sighing. He had not expected to use it this soon. He remembered that a few days ago, he had still been inside the level 3 corrosion source on Jiadong Island. There, he had found a glowing glove, and after figuring it out, he confirmed that it was not an ordinary glove. The moment he discovered that it could absorb magic power from the surroundings, he understood. Functionally, it was very basic equipment that could support its own magical energy. But to Yu Chan-suk, it meant much more. This thing was like a magic power battery. He had estimated its maximum storage, probably enough to last about 5 minutes, and in those brief 5 minutes, he might become strong enough to approach Lee Se-eun's level. At that moment, Yu Chan-suk gripped the sword tightly and activated his magic power. Then in one breath swung out dozens of sword energy arcs, their tearing sounds blending into one. Before the sword energy, the zombies were cut apart and fell like paper, and Han Sang-ae watched with a face full of disbelief. Her heart turned cold. In such a short time, he had already cleared out so many zombies. After clearing the immediate threat, Yu Chan-suk told Han Sang-ae not to look back and to drive straight to the harbor. Han Sang-ae nodded and accelerated forward, and soon they reached a harbor in Yetsu. Yu Chan-suk thought it would be over once they passed this point, but unexpectedly another huge wave of zombies surged up behind them. Han Sang-ae anxiously said the car was almost at its limit, and they might have to deal with the car first. Yu Chan-suk rejected that outright and told her to keep driving. Han Sang-ae was worried. At this speed, they would be caught sooner or later. But just then, the zombies that had been chasing wildly all suddenly stopped in perfect unison. Han Sang-ae was puzzled. It was as if they had hit an invisible wall. And as if thinking of something, her expression shifted. Could it be because of that? She explained, this kind of formation was called the Divine Protection Method. She remembered Yu Chan-suk mentioning it before. The Divine Protection Method was a means of suppressing monsters. Yu Chan-suk had also said that even if he told her, she would not be able to learn it. It was a skill he had learned in another world. When the car finally slowed to a stop, Han Sang-ae sighed at how dangerous this operation had been. She asked Yu Chan-suk, using this method, could they defeat any monster? Yu Chan-suk looked at her and reminded her not to think so simply. This method did not work on real people. At that moment, the ghost samurai muttered in a low voice, the sacrifices must be protected. Han Sang-ae's whole body tensed instantly. She could feel that aura. And her heart sank. Mind's eye? The surrounding energy grew colder and colder, but Yu Chan-suk judged that it was not much of a threat. Mind's eye was a sense beyond the 5 senses that could predict an enemy's attacks. Han Sang-ae could not understand it. Even masters found it hard to grasp. So how could an ordinary corpse possibly possess it? Looking at her trembling hand, Yu Chan-suk quietly reassured her, don't be afraid. There's no need to fear it. So-called Mind's Eye, along with other similar techniques, were essentially all illusions. He told her to keep watching, and afterward he would teach her how to deal with them. Then Yu Chan-suk slowly walked toward the ghost samurai, and Han Sang-ae was shocked. Why can't you handle it alone? Yu Chan-suk told her. That was data accumulated through countless real battles. Like a conditioned reflex, it was instinct naturally grown on the battlefield. An unconscious response to an enemy's intent and fear. Simply because he had released killing intent, the other side would fall into that pitiful state. Of course, very few people could do that. Something stirred in Han Sang-ae's heart. Sword insight and Mind's Eye, that selfless divine sword and the reversal of fate. Perhaps they all belong to the same kind of enlightenment. At that moment, Yu Chan-suk gripped the sword, gave it a light swing, and then followed with another swing. With only those 2 strikes, the ghost samurai was cut in half at the waist. Looking at the fallen samurai, Yu Chan-suk said, it isn't actually special. What's scary is the illusion of something like enlightenment. You get trapped by these names because you place limits on yourself first. What matters on the battlefield isn't the name, but the result. If you want to break out of the trap, you have to shatter your fixed ideas. That ghost samurai your car couldn't even kill, and its final trump card was only Mind's Eye. After hearing all that, Han Sang-ae even began to doubt what exactly she had contributed in this hunt. She kept saying she wanted to do her very best, but Yu Chan-suk's power had already gone far beyond her understanding. She warned herself inwardly. When acting together with him, she absolutely could not lose focus. She looked up at Yu Chan-suk, her gaze growing firmer. She spoke again. "Please, Yu Chan-suk, teach me seriously." Yu Chan-suk asked in return whether he had not already been teaching her all along. Was giving advice not enough? But Han Sang-ae said that now she wanted Yu Chan-suk's direct instruction. "Compared with you, I'm too weak. That's why I want to become stronger as soon as possible." Yu Chan-suk did not understand and told her to explain the reason clearly. Hatred ignited in Han Sang-ae's eyes. "Because I want to destroy the Shodai Club with my own hands." It was one of the world's 8 major corrosion danger zones, and the Shodai Club was infamous for swallowing the Himalayas in a single gulp. Yu Chan-suk's heart sank. This goal was far too big. "You want revenge?" Han Sang-ae's eyes were full of pain as she nodded in admission, but she was not asking Yu Chan-suk to help for free. Of course, she was not asking Yu Chan-suk to do this without compensation. Her family owned a company worth 257 trillion won. Yu Chan-suk confirmed. "You're the daughter of a chaebol family?" Han Sang-ae nodded lightly. Her grandfather was in power, but she had given up the inheritance struggle. But if she made achievements as a hunter, she might instead be dragged back into the inheritance battle. As long as Yu Chan-suk made her stronger, she would give him spirit medicine in return, the kind so scarce that it could not be obtained through normal channels at all. She also asked Yu Chan-suk, "You want to become stronger too, don't you?" With the spirit medicine she could provide, he would reach the state he was pursuing. Yu Chan-suk knew very clearly in his heart, even if he told her the truth, Han Sang-ae would not believe it. The height he was meant to reach, and that she could never touch, was one he had already stood upon long ago. Now, the only reason he wanted to become stronger was to return the world to what it originally was. So he did not need those scarce resources. "For now, the information you've given me is already enough." Afterward, Yu Chan-suk drove Han Sang-ae to the medical center. The doctor there said that the 7 people they had previously sent over, judging by their current nutritional state, would need at least a week before they could speak. Once they regained consciousness, the hospital would notify Yu Chan-suk immediately. So for now, they were asked to rest well and focus on recovering their health. In order to help Han Sang-ae improve her strength as quickly as possible, Yu Chan-suk then immediately took her to a specialized training ground. But before the training began, Yu Chan-suk stared at her and asked a key question. "If I swing my spear with full force, can you dodge it?" Hearing that, Han Sang-ae looked troubled. She felt the gap between herself and Yu Chan-suk was too great. But Yu Chan-suk rejected that on the spot and directly told her that she definitely could dodge. The method was to push her senses to the limit. Use her eyes to catch every change around her. Use her ears to hear every faint sound clearly. Use her nose to distinguish every change of smell in the air. And finally use her skin to sense the movement of the airflow. When you master these senses, you fight in awareness instead of flailing around unconsciously. Now, let me see whether you can remember what I've said. The moment the words fell, Han Sang-ae's eyes were instantly filled with fear. Yu Chan-suk's figure had seemingly vanished into thin air. In the blink of an eye, the weapon's cold edge was already pressed against her neck, and that icy sensation made her whole body stiffen. Yu Chan-suk's expression was severe. Real combat doesn't give you time to think things through slowly. You must sense first, then think. Act using the senses you already possess. The things you haven't mastered will only deceive you. Theory ends here. Now we move to actual combat. In the blink of an eye, the crisp sounds of weapons colliding rang out across the training ground one after another. And Han Sang-ae clenched her teeth and slashed at him fiercely with her blade. Yu Chan-suk's eyes were sharp as a hawk, catching precisely the instant she drew her strike. He shifted to the side and cleanly avoided that flash of the blade. In the next second, Yu Chan-suk swung his spear backhanded and blasted a heavy strike toward her. Han Sang-ae hurriedly raised her hand, trying to block. But in the blink of an eye, Yu Chan-suk had already closed in front of her, the spear tip aimed directly at the center of her brow. Han Sang-ae's heart sank. She knew she could not dodge it. But just then, a voice suddenly rang out. Someone loudly called out to Yu Chan-suk. The newcomer's tone was urgent. "One of the survivors you rescued has just woken up." Yu Chan-suk withdrew his spear and said to Han Sang-ae, "You can already block my attacks a little now. That's enough for the first training session. For now, we're going to the hospital." After rushing to the hospital, the survivor was trembling in panic. Grabbing Yu Chan-suk, he said he had witnessed something unusual. A truck had driven to the place where he was being held, and someone escaped from it. That group was terrifyingly calm. Catching them would have been almost impossible. The monsters showed no hostility toward them at all and were even helping them. They picked out several hostages and loaded them straight onto the truck. Hearing this, Yu Chan-suk finally understood why only 7 hostages had been rescued at the time. Because someone from Silver Hope had successfully escaped from there. And it was precisely because of that person's actions that they had gotten the chance to save the others. But the moment Yu Chan-suk voiced that deduction, the survivor immediately denied it. because those people had not escaped at all. They had been deliberately let go. Even stranger was this, ordinary civilians could break in and still escape, but trained hunters could not get in. If someone did not want to let you leave, then even being a hunter was useless. Doesn't that mean that place was a trap from the very beginning? But why would they do that? Yu Chan-suk listened with growing interest, and the corner of his mouth slowly lifted. If they dare play tricks like this, then I'll play with them to the end. Looking at Yu Chan-suk's expression, Han Sang-a felt her chest tighten. Had he gotten angry because someone was underestimating him? Yu Chan-suk asked the survivor again, aside from the trap, were there any other clues? The survivor hesitated for a moment, frowning as he tried to remember, and finally said that he had seen a cat. The person who came out of the airport had a cat-shaped mascot hanging from his waist. After getting that clue, Yu Chan-suk and Han Sang-a immediately set out for the airport. But after turning the airport upside down, they did not even find an ant, much less the target. Yu Chan-suk stopped and stood where he was, beginning to weigh things in his mind. Should he go back to the shrine and investigate again? Just then, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. That face full of piercings left a deep impression on Yu Chan-suk. How did your face end up like that? The man looked like an idiot on the surface, but Yu Chan-suk knew this was absolutely no ordinary opponent. At that moment, Kim Hye-yeon stood before the two of them, and admitted that he was the one who had brought the hostages onto the island. The two of them immediately tensed. That hostage was still alive? Kim Hye-yeon spoke coldly. Now, it's time for you to see what a so-called alternative plan looks like. Then he directly threw a hostage into the designated area. He's throwing a person into the corrosion zone? As long as the core remained, anyone thrown in there would have no chance of escaping. In the next second, that hostage mutated on the spot and directly became a corrosion entity. Kim Hye-yeon gave a mocking laugh. Just as I expected, weak hosts are worthless. A person like this can't even withstand a casual kick from me. Yu Chan-suk asked in a low voice, are you trying to turn us into monsters too? Kim Hye-yeon answered bluntly, of course, sacrificing ordinary civilians alone is far from enough. We need to create corrosion entities that truly meet the requirements. Yu Chan-suk's gaze grew colder. So your goal was never just kidnapping? Kim Hye-yeon shrugged. Personally, I don't care about anyone on this island. But the elder told me to explain, said it was for the greater good, so listen carefully. We are the heirs of Dangul, gathered here for one purpose alone, and we will achieve it at any cost, to preserve Korea's current hegemonic status. If we do that, no one will dare challenge us again, and in the end we will build a truly powerful nation. As his words fell, Kim Hye-yeon kicked the nearby car and sent it flying. The vehicle roared through the air toward Yu Chan-suk. With one sweep of his spear, Yu Chan-suk split the car cleanly in two. Yu Chan-suk said coldly that in his view, this country was already one of the world's great powers. But Kim Hye-yeon was even more unhinged. It's still not enough. We want this nation to become something all people can be proud of, a powerful country that no one would dare look down on. To master a truly overwhelming, unshakable superhuman power. Think about this country's past. It was once colonized, and I will never forget that humiliation. So we will reclaim everything that was lost. Yu Chan-suk could tell that Kim Hye-yeon was a black belt in Taekwondo, and despite having no equipment, he was absurdly fast, stronger than Yu Chan-suk had estimated. But Yu Chan-suk could still barely withstand his force. Honestly speaking, the logic Kim Hye-yeon was using was not completely unreasonable. If the corrosion zones disappeared, Korea would have a hard time maintaining its current position. Yu Chan-suk directly shot back. So what? Countless innocent people are dying. Can't you tell what matters most right now? Kim Hye-yeon sneered. The one who truly doesn't understand is you. We've already found a way to control the corrosion zones. A flicker moved in Yu Chan-suk's eyes. If you really can control the corrosion zones, that would mean everyone could live safely. If the conditions are right, I'm willing to discuss cooperation. But to what extent can you actually control them? Kim Hye-yeon replied disdainfully. Why should I tell you? In any case, we've already achieved enough control. Yu Chan-suk exposed him on the spot. So this so-called enough means you haven't achieved complete control, right? Just as I thought, you people don't have that kind of power at all. Acting as if you have lofty goals just makes you disgusting. Yu Chan-suk had intended to drag things out through conversation and slowly recover his magic power. But right now, his reserves were critically low, and he could not release the Flames of Paradox at all. Without the Flames of Paradox, he had almost no chance of defeating Kim Hye-yeon. Just then, Han Sang-a suddenly swung a streak of sword light at Kim Hye-yeon. Kim Hye-yeon smiled mockingly. I thought you'd be so scared you couldn't move. Didn't expect a pretty face like yours to actually have some guts. Yu Chan-suk immediately shouted, Han Sang-a, don't fight him head-on. Han Sang-a gritted her teeth and answered, your scroll's magic is obviously exhausted. If you force more spirit medicine into yourself, there's a real chance your magic will overload. Right now, the only thing I can do is buy you time. Yu Chan-suk said quietly, thanks, Han Sang-a. Give me 5 minutes and I'll finish him. Han Sang-ae stared at him. "Yu Chan-suk, you can't lose." In the next second, Kim Hye-hyun lunged at Han Sang-ae with savage force. There was even a smile in his tone. "Miss Han Sang-ae, I'm honestly worried I might not control my strength and kick you to death." Before the words had fully fallen, he launched a sweeping kick. The terrifying force sent Han Sang-ae flying on the spot. Fortunately, Yu Chan-suk rushed forward immediately and caught her firmly. Then fixed his eyes on Kim Hye-hyun and said coldly, "Are you ready to die?" Kim Hye-hyun's pupils contracted. "How did your magic suddenly increase so much? Were you hiding your strength from the start?" Yu Chan-suk answered indifferently, "Nothing worth being surprised about. The principle is the same as the piercings on your face." Kim Hye-hyun froze. "How do you know that?" Yu Chan-suk's gaze was like a blade. "The fact that you haven't even noticed can only mean you're stupid. Look around. There's purified magic leaking all through the air. The magic inside your body has been overloaded for a long time, and that's why it's leaking out. Thanks to you, I finally gathered enough magic to ignite the flames of paradox. Come to think of it, I should thank you." Kim Hye-hyun roared, "You're talking nonsense. There's no way in the world to absorb discarded magic." Yu Chan-suk's voice turned colder. "You don't need to know the truth. Either way, you die here today." In the next second, Yu Chan-suk's figure flashed, and he thrust 16 times in succession at Kim Hye-hyun. After being pierced through, Kim Hye-hyun could not even keep breathing, and he quickly realized that the problem with his body was far beyond lung damage. More fatal still, he could no longer even sense his own heartbeat. He was only standing by sheer force of magic power, just to preserve the last scrap of pitiful dignity he had left. And Yu Chan-suk had already burned away all the muscular strength in his body, leaving him with no capital to resist. Driven into a corner, Kim Hye-hyun actually cried out to his captain for help. The moment the words left his mouth, a blinding light exploded before Yu Chan-suk's eyes. Yu Chan-suk's nerves tightened instantly, and he entered a combat response at once. In the next second, he pulled out the spear on his back and swung it hard toward the direction from which the attack had come. After blocking that wave of offense, Yu Chan-suk stared coldly ahead, wanting to see who else dared interfere. The other side had not expected that Yu Chan-suk could draw his spear and counterattack immediately. According to his plan, Yu Chan-suk's wrist should at least have been crippled first. Not only did that person receive Yu Chan-suk's counterattack, he even praised his reflexes and instincts in battle. Yu Chan-suk's heart sank. Even in this era, there was still someone using traditional Korean archery. This guy was the captain they had mentioned, and the pressure of the energy waves coming off him was worthy of the title of captain. No matter how unwilling he was to admit it, Yu Chan-suk could only admit that this man was at least twice as strong as Lee Se-yoon, and possibly 3 to 4 times as strong. At that moment, the hooded man above finally spoke. He first praised Yu Chan-suk's courage, then asked in return, "Was Yu Chan-suk not afraid of death?" Looking up at him on the rooftop, Yu Chan-suk answered in an unhurried tone, "If you really wanted to kill me, you'd have done it already. The fact that you haven't means you have another objective." Then Yu Chan-suk raised a hand and activated his strange flame. "Are you more interested in the life in my hands, or in the one under my feet?" At the same time, Kim Hye-hyun, wrapped in the strange flames, felt the burning pain intensify. With the last of his strength, he screamed and begged the captain to save him. Hearing the wailing, the hooded man directly ordered Yu Chan-suk to extinguish the flames on Kim Hye-hyun, saying he did not want to repeat himself. At that moment, Yu Chan-suk finally understood everything. Before Kim Hye-hyun collapsed, his magic had already been exhausted, and now it was only the hooded man's magic that was keeping him alive. More importantly, if that arrow just now had aimed at Yu Chan-suk's head rather than his wrist, he would already be dead. The other side had deliberately held back. On the other side, Kim Hye-hyun finally could not hold on any longer, and his consciousness began to fade. In the next second, he completely lost his strength, and his body collapsed uncontrollably. The hooded man instantly flashed to his side and caught him steadily, then demanded to know whether Yu Chan-suk realized what he had done to Kim Hye-hyun. Kim Hye-hyun's muscular strength was ruined, and for the rest of his life he would only be able to rely on magic power to maintain blood circulation, destined to live in a wheelchair. The hooded man said coldly, "I will take you back alive. As long as I leave you breathing, that's enough." As long as Yu Chan-suk was left with a single breath, that would be enough. Yu Chan-suk fired back without hesitation, "Go ahead and try. I'd rather self-detonate on the spot than become your puppet." But before he could figure out the principle behind Yu Chan-suk's flames, the hooded man withdrew first. He left behind one sentence. "When corrosion rifts first appeared, no one believed they could be controlled either. But I did it. One day, you too will stand beneath my rule." With that, his figure flashed and disappeared directly from Yu Chan-suk's sight. After the hooded man left, Yu Chan-suk understood, a short-tempered madman had set his sights on him. Even Han Sang-ae could tell. The thing the other side wanted was Yu Chan-suk's unique trait. Logically speaking, if they had truly wanted to capture him, they could easily have tied him up while he was unconscious. But Yu Chan-suk suspected that the other side might already know Han Sang-ae's background. Han Sang-a asked, "Do you think terrorists would care about a background like that?" Yu Chan-suk told her to think carefully. What was the real purpose behind this entire sequence of actions? Han Sang-a reacted instantly and blurted out, "Wait, could it be that the Korean government doesn't actually want this matter resolved?" Yu Chan-suk voiced his guess. The group behind all this had likely been receiving direct official support the whole time. Han Sang-a panicked on the spot. "Then does that mean we shouldn't have cleared this corrosion rift?" But Yu Chan-suk answered her blandly, "Who cares? We'll just pretend we don't know." But Han Sang-a said awkwardly that she was not good at lying. Yu Chan-suk sighed helplessly. He had guessed that long ago. Then Yu Chan-suk began walking deeper into the building and said to Han Sang-a at the same time, they could settle the later trouble afterward, but for now they had to deal with the problem in front of them first. She should wait outside while he went in alone. Han Sang-a looked worried. "Do you really not need me to come in and help?" Yu Chan-suk glanced back at her. "You have no idea what they've done inside. Once I go in and take a look, everything will become clear. Stay here, rest, recover your strength, and wait for me to come back." With that, Yu Chan-suk did not hesitate. With one leap, he jumped straight into the depths of the corrosion rift. After passing through the dark tunnel, Yu Chan-suk reached his destination, the Level 2 corrosion rift on Tsushima Island. Very soon, he arrived in front of the door of an old-style building. He did not pause and simply raised his hand and pushed the wooden door open. The instant the door opened, he saw the scene before him clearly and completely confirmed it. This really was a Level 2 corrosion rift. He had originally thought this place would be a castle piled up from rotten undead flesh, but the structure before him was so solid that it was alarming. Not only that, the yin energy was as dense as fog. Every breath Yu Chan-suk took felt like icy needles stabbing into his lungs. Yu Chan-suk knew very well in his heart, behind this door lay all the answers he wanted. Beyond the door was the location of the corrosion rift core. Yu Chan-suk had never liked overthinking before a fight, but this time he had no choice but to calculate every possibility in advance. If he relaxed for even one instant, he could lose his life on the spot. After walking into the room, Yu Chan-suk immediately saw a black vessel emitting a strange green glow. Watching that thing churn continuously with green light, Yu Chan-suk's heart sank. It was actually a huge vat. He could hardly believe it. This thing was the core of a Level 2 corrosion rift? Everything before him was the complete opposite of what he had expected. Just then, a faint sound reached him, and Yu Chan-suk's pupils contracted sharply. Following the sound, he saw a man covered in wounds lying on the ground, stretching out a hand and using the last of his strength to beg him for help. At the same time, something suddenly extended out of the vat, and viscous liquid dripped from the rim one drop at a time. The man on the ground cried out, "Both my legs are gone. The pain is unbearable." His fingers clawed desperately at the cold ground, and though he was clearly on the verge of death, his pleas for help still came out in broken bursts. But in the very next second, a thick tail suddenly lashed out. Yu Chan-suk's pupils shrank, and his body froze for an instant. Immediately afterward, the man was dragged alive into the vat, and even his final cries for help were completely swallowed by the eerie green light. That scene instantly reminded Yu Chan-suk of the other world. Countless shrill screams and cries for help flooded his ears like a tide. The hellish sight before him made his stomach churn, and instinctively he clamped a hand tightly over his mouth. He clenched his teeth, and cold fury surged in his eyes. What a disgusting bunch of humans. At that moment, Yu Chan-suk fully understood. This was not the core of a corrosion rift at all, but an altar for live human sacrifice. But this sacrifice was different from every case he had encountered before. The instant this violent yet familiar energy appeared, Yu Chan-suk recognized it immediately. Yes, this was the aura. In the next second, a bizarre figure fully revealed itself before Yu Chan-suk. Looking at the katana clenched in the other party's hand, Yu Chan-suk finally understood. This was the aura of a samurai.